So today we're focusing on the state of Destiny 2 PvP right now, leading into the final shape, things like that you would want to see changed. So starting with introductions. First up, we have one of the best PvP players in the world, a Trials Demon who has brought home multiple world's first flawlesses and has destroyed gaming chairs in the process. A cracked gamer who constantly helps players to the lighthouse, Diffizzle. Thank you for joining, man.
Yep, thank you for having me.
We got to talk about that DX Racer or whatever that chair was. I saw that picture on Twitter from a while back, man. That was too funny. Next up, we have a man who continues to age like a fine wine, known for his smooth movement, hosting community labs focused on learning and improvement, a true student of the game, Mr. IllPhysics. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Yo, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And last but not least, we have one of the friendliest and creative members of the community, yet takes no prisoners when absolutely destroying people's egos with Blink. Destiny 2 TikTok extraordinaire with an outstanding mustache, Mr. JOverrated. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, stop. Keep going, but stop.
But stop it. So I guess before we dive in, and actually I might do the opening question before anything else, and then we'll read the TWA, because I think that might be the best way to do it, is your current sentiment and then see if any of that's addressed in what was released today. So Diffizzle, I'm going to start with you. How do you feel about the current state of PvP? Just super high level question. It's obviously very loaded and very broad, and that's intentional because we're going to be diving into, other subsections of Crucible and things like that. But how are you feeling about PvP right now?
I feel like we are very close to being in a good spot. For me, the only thing that like my MO for PvP, and this is me as like a hardcore player, and there's all types of players that play the game. This is just my opinion. And the thing is like, of course, they can't gear the entire game to like the 1%. That doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
I don't even expect them to do that. I don't know. I think really all that needs to be done is like they need to change airborne effectiveness where all guns have like perfect inner accuracy, and maybe remove a lot of the exotic perks where I think it's like really overcomplicating and making the jumping in the air and shooting very convoluted and hard to understand, especially for newer players.
100%. Which
I think from their perspective, they can maybe get behind it because they are all about accessibility and about ease of access, right? Like I'm down for that too. I want people to be able to jump into Destiny and enjoy the game and, play it at whatever level they want.
Sure.
I think as well, doing that will increase the skill gap, which I'm for. I like there being a skill gap in the game. I think that's something that's been diminished and has been kind of coming back. But I mean, the biggest thing obviously is just the frequency in which they make changes. But I mean, it's not in too horrible of a spot. It's kind of frustrating right now with Titans being as strong as they are. If you play at a high end, you pretty much have to play Titan if you want to win consistently.
Nah. You can't be saying
Yeah.
that.
No, that's not cap
You
at all.
can't be saying that, man. When I say it, you know what I'm saying? Like
you can't speak the truth.
Mute my tweet. You know what I'm saying? Okay, but I'm gonna let you rock, Sam. I'm gonna let you rock.
No, I mean, if you look at the numbers, right, in trials, the people that are like in the top 1% for win rate, like 90% of them are Titan, and that's just what the meta is. And I don't know, I think that's kind of unhealthy for the game as well. I think the amount of abilities, the frequency and abilities is like kind of unhealthy for the game and kind of kills variety, and they're all about that. Like I'm all about from my perspective, what I think Bungie wants is they want everything to have its like use. Like they want SMGs to be good in close quarters, hand cannons to be good in like close to medium range. Everything is used where it's supposed to be used. And there's not like one loadout that's like this covers everything. You don't have to use any of the other tools. You just use this one loadout, with this one class, and you're good. They don't want that.
Okay.
And I think they need to adjust abilities specifically across, like on all classes across the board, to make that where that's the case.
Yeah, I think you make some very interesting points. So one thing that you touched on is like obviously, a lot of I think people become Destiny creators in general because they've either played the game a really long time, they have a big knowledge base of the game, or they're, very talented relative to, they have a high skill level relative to most of the casual audience. And as you noted, like, obviously they can't scale everything towards the 1%. Doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And that's been a theme across everything we've talked about this week. Like, it's how I think they need to obviously focus on the casual player, which I think they've been doing more so, like, in recent years, almost to, not to a detriment, but like that's been their primary focus, right? And I think sometimes the end game focus has kind of waned a little bit. And so for you, when you're talking about things and how you understand that, I think that's actually a really cool perspective from someone that's literally getting world's first trials completions on like almost a weekly basis and things like that. And one of the things you talked about, metas, I feel like whether it's PvE, PvP across the game, there's always going to be things that are egregious. It's kind of, as you spoke to though, how quickly they come back and they tune those things, which hopefully will be addressed to a better extent with the strike team. And it seems like, with the TWID we'll be covering here shortly, like they're aiming to do that, and it seems like they're making more frequent changes, and I hope that continues. The one thing you mentioned though was the airborne effectiveness that I think that's one where like it felt like it was a change from Bungie that it wasn't requested. It was almost like, Stompy Hunters could be frustrating to play against on console and things like that with the limited vertical mobility on a controller or whatever it might be. And that skill expression was taken away. And I'm not sure that's the one change they've made where I'm just like, I don't know who asked for that, and they've stuck to it for so long. And that's kind of been a bizarre one for me.
So from my perspective, I think every change that Bungie has ever made, someone wants. You might not know them, but they exist. There's like millions of people that play this game, and just because it's not seen in like your information circles, those things, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
And that's really what I think that was, because there was people that thought Stompies, and even now that think Stompies are overpowered and need to be nerfed, and they're entitled to that opinion. That's because that's the thing too, is not everyone objectively agrees on what's cheese, what's morality.
Right.
Like to some people, if you use a hand cannon shotgun, you're like the scum of the earth, and to others, if you use SMG,
in a space magic game, right? Like that's
exactly. It's completely, people should just use what they want. But what I'm saying, people should use what they want and just shut up, in my opinion. That's, who cares what you use as long as you're not cheating.
I do think that I completely agree. I think the point that they brought up, like I've seen so much on Twitter, is like people just attacking others for their playstyle. Like, dude, it's in the game. If they use it, I mean, that's, if anything, if Bungie leaves something egregious in the game, that's on them, not the player. So
I think people are perfectly entitled to be annoyed by it. Like if I play someone that's like, I played some guys that were using Rat King in a GL this weekend, and I would just say, I really do not enjoy this individual space battle.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, this guy is
this individual space battle.
Horrible. Yeah, I word it in a very like literal like way like that, because that's what it is. I don't know this person. I don't know like who they are, what they do. I just don't enjoy the way they play the game.
Yeah,
it's very annoying to me, and that's all it is.
Fair enough. Joey, what's your current take on the state of PvP?
Well, I don't know if it's pessimistic or optimistic, but kind of ever since Beyond Light, I just kind of had like a shift in my mentality. I was never like a morality loadout guy, but it was annoying to play against certain things, and eventually, with how broken Stasis was for so long, that was like the final catalyst of just being like, I don't think Destiny 2 PvP is ever gonna be what I want it, what we all have wanted it to be. So right. I just gotta stop taking it as seriously. Like, this isn't the MLG World Finals, it's Destiny 2 PvP. Like kind of what Fizz is saying about like, just use, if it's in the game, who cares? Just use it if you want to, or if it's good, and like it's on Bungie to fix it. But again, One-Eyed Mask was in the game for like 7 months just unchanged. And I like you're saying in Twit, I don't know if they're gonna address in like, I would love monthly updates or, every other month updates, but that hasn't been the case for so long that I've just been like, you know what, just use the silly stuff, use the broken stuff. It's not that deep. That's kind of where I'm at
For sure.
overall.
I actually am pretty surprised by your guys' perspectives, and I respect them a lot. As like people who spend so much time in that playlist, it would irk me so much playing like just the oppressive things that get left in the game. And to your point, like they'll leave, I mean, whether it was what the one-eyed mask era, whether it was stasis just being like so unbelievably over the top, like powerful for so long. Lord of Wolves metas. I mean, you name it. Like, there's things that will go untouched for months, and we're not asking. I don't think. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll tell you what. If you are using the one-eyed mask and the Arbalist, it doesn't feel as bad to die to it.
That's very true, and I think that's where it spirals, right? But I think, to your guys' point, we're not asking for like, bi-weekly updates or something like that. I think it's just, I think the cadence they've come to is like what, maybe a mid-season patch and like a patch between seasons. Has that kind of been the cadence for PvP? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So like that, I feel like as long as they're addressing the super hot items is fine to me. Like letting things run hot for a month and a half, it's when things start to get, it's like 7 months. You're like, dude, how in the world has this not been addressed yet?
That's kind of the thing with how long this game has been out now. It's, it used to be, oh, One-Eyed Mask is crazy, Revoker's crazy. But now there's like 17 outliers of broken things that it's just going to, one thing gets nerfed and it's just going to be another thing like that's going to be more overpowered than the other. Like
sure. There's always something that's going to take its
You're not
place.
going to get a perfect sandbox in this game, and you're going to go crazy trying to, curate it or work around it. So I'm just embracing the chaos.
And so going over to physics, I guess, what are your thoughts on what's already been said and then your current state of PvP?
Oh, I'm not embracing the chaos. not like that. Like I'm all about like nuance and middle grounds. I definitely 100% accept that this game is not meant for me as a hardcore player PvP wise. As much as my less experienced folks, and always ensuring that things are accessible to the degree that we can always be supporting the population, hopefully growing our community as well.
Right.
But there's a middle ground to that chaos as well, as far as providing that rewarding gameplay environment, allowing people to work towards building their own individual play style, and then being able to every once in a while jump into a flow state and be moving, be dynamic. The first thing as far as like the current state of PvP is, I feel as though we've lost that overarching goal, of ensuring that PvP is a rewarding experience by dynamic play.
Yep.
What I mean by that is the example I'll give is very simple, and I'm not harping today on this, but Titan barricades, right? Titan barricades, like Bubble Titan as well is another good example. It's just like we shouldn't have to be switching loadouts for that, like mid game.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to be using a hockey, like having a hockey weapon in my inventory to swap to, because I just so happen to pop into a game and it's just like we got 3, Bubble Titans with overshield barricades. The type of counters that are provided should be dynamic, and so, to ensure that the gameplay loop remains dynamic, that people are moving, that we're getting into engagements, because what we all enjoy about the game, no matter what we use, is getting into an engagement, recovering, and immediately just getting on that high, that dopamine high from the next engagement, moving, inching forward towards an objective, whatever else. And a lot of that has been lost, not just by Titan barricades, but just by allowing such high ease of use with defensive measures that just forces everyone, even in casual play plus skill-based matchmaking, tourney style, to play with the degree of intention that's just too much, you know? Like, I shouldn't have to be playing with the degree of intention that is required in quick play,
Right.
you know?
As
In
someone,
casual play.
yeah, I mean, to go off of that thought, I think you make a really interesting point, and for like everybody listening now, or for the video that'll be posted later, I think the thing he's not complaining about the fact that like, Titan barricade can't be useful, or like the fact that there should
Most
be
definitely.
measures of counterplay. I think more so it's been made more frustrating to play against with the addition of 3.0. When a shield goes up, now you have an overshield. Now when you're playing solar, you engage someone, you get them one shot, they throw a healing grenade with like a very short cooldown, all of a sudden they're full health again and re-peak you. And it's just like, it's those things that all those defensive measures you talked about, and then having the offensive utility like stompies and airborne effectiveness and like kind of those more dynamic playstyles that you were talking about tuned back. It's just that shift has felt, and this is something I as well, like I don't play a ton of PvP anymore for a lot of those reasons, because it's become so defensive, laney. Like there's obviously people that can play very aggressive, but man, like re-engaging someone 3-4 times and having like multiple heal grenades across a team or multiple overshields, it's just like at some point it becomes unfun to play against, and it kind of ruins that, like like you said, you kill, you move on, and the natural flow of the game just feels a little off.
Yeah, and we've just been missing that high level like development of PvP to ensure that the goal is dynamic play first and foremost. No matter, like I say it again, no matter what your play style is, every single one of us get on a high when we're just moving around the map, when we're just going from engagement to engagement, when we are incentivized to move and to push and to test our limits, test our mettle against another player. It's PvP. It's not, it's player versus player. It's not A cap versus B cap. Yeah. Like people will literally cap a flag, and to their credit, Bungie has incentivized this. People will literally cap a flag and then run away from a 1v1 on that flag and then go to the next flag. And it's just like, I'm not saying that objectives aren't important or that objectives shouldn't be incentivized, but it shouldn't be to the detriment of what PvP is about, player versus player, getting into engagement, testing metal or whatnot. So like that was kind of like the first thing. And I'll give you an example of a dynamic counter. Like I was really excited to see in one of the clips that they revealed for Final Shape, I assume, was a new aspect or something like that, or an Arc Strider that allowed Tempest Strike to go over the barricade, right? Yep. And then actually do damage on the Titan to force them to make decisions as opposed to dance behind it and bat and teabag or something like that, Yep. And so that's just another, like, that's a really good example of a counter that is easily accessible, that is easy to understand for anybody just coming into the game, and the same degree of ease of use as putting up that barricade. So now folks have to make some decisions on whether they want to play. They put up the barricade, it's got to be for a purpose. It's got to be for a purpose to re-engage, not to just kind of like sit there and everybody else just kind of like just holding or whatnot.
It's interesting that you brought that up as well, because from a, like, as a PvE player, that's the subclass to me that I looked at and I was like, not super interesting to me. So like hearing that perspective of like, that's the one you're the most excited about, because the Arc Strider looks cool for PvE, but with how many powerful options we have, I'm just like, it'll be fun, but it's kind of more of a PvP focus thing, was like literally my first thought. So hearing you be so excited about it as like a part of counterplay in Crucible is pretty cool.
It's simple, but it's impactful on such like a very basic level once you kind of see the direction. Like I shouldn't have to switch to a hockey weapon, and then like do all that. I can literally just dodge around that that barricade immediately. They try to pop up a shield, and within like a half a second, I can immediately dodge around that, get my Tempest Strike, and then slide right back in, throw the Tempest Strike. That's dynamic play. It's exciting to see. It's exciting to do.
Yep.
It's accessible. It's not particularly hard. Somebody can get it, within like a day or two of playing, and it's not something that they got to switch up, a loadout for in even trials and stuff like that. It's, people are incentivized to get that excitement out of that sort of gameplay, and that's what makes Destiny like fantastic. Is this is not CS:GO.
Yeah. It is supposed to be a space magic game, and you want it's supposed to be fun.
Exactly.
So, Fizz, I'm gonna bring this back a little bit. And then we're gonna dive into the tweet. This was like one question, and I looked at what came out today ahead of time, which is why I want to ask this.
Okay.
Should checkmate be the new standard for Crucible? I know there was a lot of positive feedback around this, and I'd be curious to get your guys' thoughts on like what your experience with this playlist has been, and whether you think it should be more like in the main rotation of Crucible playlists.
Fizz don't play checkmate, bro. If it don't come to trials, he don't play checkmate. But I'm gonna let him rock though. There's ain't no way. I ain't seen him in there. You seen him? Hey, yo, chat. Y'all seen him? I ain't seen him in there, bro.
I've played checkmate. I have an opinion on it. Yes.
Okay.
So I think checkmate is very good. Actually, I think so. One thing that I think is the biggest issue with trials and just the game in general, the current PvP sandbox, is abilities. One thing checkmate does is reduce ability cooldowns. And I think partially what makes Titan so strong is the frequency in which you're able to spam shields, grenades, and stuff like that. And I think, like I said, when I first spoke, I think that's, even if they change Titans to where that's not the case, you're going to see other classes have that problem. Mm-hmm. So I think that you should have access to these abilities, but you shouldn't be able to like spam them. I think that's what you should have to like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to throw my grenade, and I have to be very intelligent about how I throw this grenade, because if I'm not intelligent about it, then I'm not going to have a grenade. Like, you should be able to have that and make a decision with it. And if you fuck up, or if you make a mistake and you throw a bad nade, then that's going to hurt you. You're not going to have that grenade for a bit, and you're going to have to use your weapon. Same thing with the shield. I think the health they have is fine. It's just you need to make it so the cooldown isn't super frequent. It's like below 1 minute right now for normal shields. And I mean, that's the thing with like classes, right? Is Bungie wants classes to have an identity. Like Dawnblade or Solar Warlock has an identity. They want it to be like, I think they said like the anime. It's like a very anime class, with flying in the air, Phoenix diving, Icarus dashing, like that's the identity of that class. And I think that Titan's identity is like, shields, being kind of a tank. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's just they make it too forgiving to play that way. And
there's not consequence, like you're saying. There's just not consequence for using it the wrong time. There
is, but there isn't enough. It's too easy to play that way, and I think they need in general with the sandbox, that is the entire issue, is ease of use, whether it's
ease
weapons
of use and defensive measure. If we're talking specifically about passive play, ease of use and defensive measures, ease of use and accessibility with defensive measures, but not so much on the aggressive measures to dynamic aggressive measures to counter it.
I think that if they make ability cooldowns not as like quick as they are, like they tone it down, and in turn, I think by toning it down, that's instantly going to make it so you have to make better decisions with your abilities. And I think if they do that, and then they make it so all weapons in the game have perfect airborne effectiveness, I think the game would be in a relatively good spot. I think part of the reason that Titan is so strong is because of abilities, and then also because you're not able to like jump backwards and shoot in the air, or like airborne effectiveness isn't really in a good spot right now.
It's very interesting that you bring those things up, because
continues.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
And another thing is that's not even putting into account supers. So like, for example, we have tier 4, tier 5, tier 3, tier 1, tier 2, and all that. And I think they should probably consolidate that down to like, tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1, like, and make it so like Bubble is on the same level as like Nova Bomb or Chaos Reach or
I definitely agree with
Tether.
that.
Yeah,
Be-
for counters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the thing is like if you want to be super objective right now, the best team comp for Trials Dominion is 2 Bubbles and 1 Thunder Crash, because Thunder Crash is the best shutdown super in the game.
Along with having the best neutral game as well.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah.
exactly. Best neutral game, and then you have the best, basically the best like defensive super, which is Bubble. I think. I think it's better than Well, because with Well you can destroy it with Quicksilver Storm. You can destroy it with the exotic fusion. You can just throw grenades at it and wither horde it.
You can headshot someone out of it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
Yep.
or you can conditional them. That's like probably the most dangerous option. But I think if they consolidate it, so they make those defensive supers in line with a lot of like shutdown supers, and then maybe make it so like T Crash is tier 2, and then like all of the roaming supers are tier 1, and then adjust the cooldowns a little bit, so it's like tier 1 isn't Spectral Blades. I don't know why that's even tier 1 anymore. Like that, I think that's the only tier 1 super is Spectral. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe that's the only tier 1.
Yeah, that's
and
the
like who plays?
It's on Hunter. It's on
Yeah, but it's like who is like, oh my god, Spectral Blades is so good.
Yeah, I mean, it
just
used to,
sacrifice.
wreak havoc for sure, but
100%. But with the current like cooldowns, it just doesn't make sense. Like that,
Absolutely.
and that's the thing is like they need to look at that again. They need to look at super cooldowns and ability cooldowns, and airborne effectiveness. All those things need to be looked at again and changed. And once those things are changed, we'll be in a better spot. It's just those things are outdated.
See, I expect a lot of our. I mean, these are some of the smartest. I still got massive amounts of respect for like my devs. At Bungie, my grand level devs at Bungie for sure. And like, while I agree with, I mean, honestly, the majority of what Diffizz is saying, I always think that they'll come up with something that we haven't come up with. One. That can balance and give us a middle ground between maintaining dynamic play, maintaining the ability to use abilities on a, I don't necessarily agree that checkmate should be the new standard, because checkmate, I'm not, necessarily saying that you are like across the board.
Yeah, I didn't even answer that question. I like completely went on a different thing.
It's okay.
Of course.
If I could give a quick answer, it would
Sure,
just be,
yeah.
I think like maybe in comp and maybe in trials, but I think the rest of the PvP should be the same. I think in like competitive modes, maybe. But
like quick play be more of like the true, just like space magic, use whatever.
Yeah, just to have
abilities.
Yeah, I still like. I agree with that. I think it should go in and out. I think it should go in and out of trials, because I think that people should still be able to get that strong, power fantasy in trials as well. Plus, if we're trying to get people to come through for trials, especially less experienced folks, then try it out and get that pop nice and thick. Especially if things remain, the way they are, with still some disparate and kind of, isolated populations, especially if we're not going to get like true crossplay,
right.
Then, people want to be able to feel the way that, they feel in casual play and quick play, the same in trials. It sometimes checkmate is too much of a different experience, basically, to the point where somebody hops in there from casual play, from quick play, especially somebody that's a little less experienced with the game. It's going to be just completely jarring to hop in to trials and have it be checkmate. So
that's a good point.
Comp, I think there's an expectation, that there's just higher intention for play, and there's a ranking and things along that line. I feel like that is a playlist as well that people will actually, because it's literally competitive division, and if anybody comes from any other game or even just watches sports, then they recognize that there's just going to be a higher standard. They're going to look into maybe what's going on specifically in comp, what these different game modes are and stuff like that, how things operate in there, versus trials, where you can, like I said, have checkmate, a checkmate style modifier come in and out of trials. And announce that ahead of time, similar to how they announce, if it's Dominion or if it's elimination, et cetera, before it was just purely Dominion.
Sure.
But as far as you say what?
For some reason, it's just Dominion all every time now.
Hey,
Pretty much.
okay. I'm gonna let you.
No, you're good. Sorry, I just literally.
No, you're good. I'm just trying not to, harp too much. I'm in line with you 100%.
I'm not hard. It's just I to bring kind of all the points together. What you guys are talking about, like ability spam and all of these, the metas. It's, at least in trials, it has so much to do with. There's a zone every 30 seconds. It takes away so much, like individuality and like variety to the games when it's just going in and it's bubble tight and everywhere. Like having it be Dominion every week really hones in the fact that it's bubbles and shields like all the time, because that's the best for that playstyle.
Well, this is my thing again. Sorry to interrupt, but this is my thing again. It's just like we recently found out that management ain't letting our devs rock.
Right.
And it's just like I'm sure they got like deep answers to these things.
Oh, absolutely.
Dominion is a quick fix, quick fix. Very simple. Anybody can be like, oh, we want them to move. Oh, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're just gonna put caps there, and that forces them to move, right? You know what I'm saying? Instead of actually addressing, the nitty gritty of why people are actually playing in the style that they're playing, right? Sure, I completely agree with the Fizz that this is another example of I completely agree with the Fizz that neutralizers need to be an adequate number of neutralizers need to be on the same tier of cooldown as bubble and well, right? But also bubble, you pop it on a spam, right? Just instantly on like a panic, you just instantly have your overshield and that health, right? Like things have to charge up, but like you have to actually, like, if somebody's weak, they can't just pop well and expect to immediately get that overshield and everything. You see it actually like charging up, So it's just like that's something that's like nuance that they could change as well. That would force people to be a little bit more intentional about when they pop such a defensive super is don't allow them to instantly get a max overshield. Same thing for Bastion. The overshield for Bastion for Titan Barricade, right? On Bubble Titan, the neutral game. Don't let it be like an instant overshield. Let it charge up that first time, just like it charges up if they end up coming back to it later on when they lose their overshield. So that it actually, you have to think about it a little bit more about when you pop it, and if you're weak, it can't just be like a freebie.
I'm gonna try and bring this in a little bit. I want to get Joey's opinion on your final checkmate on your opinion on checkmate, and then I want to do some closing thoughts. That kind of ties it into the larger scene of D2.
Keep going on tangents. I'm sure you have questions regarding.
We have a lot of questions to cover. No, you're good. You're good.
So checkmate specifically, I agree with both of these guys. I think it's honestly, I haven't really thought about putting it in comp, but that kind of seems like a genius idea, because it makes you have to be very intentional about your special ammo, and there's not going to be spam. It's going to be less abilities and focusing on your on your true gun skill and whatnot. Like that is what should be rewarded in a competitive scene.
Teamwork and gunplay.
Yeah, teamwork and gunplay. Literally, I've been on the receiving end of that against you in comp Fizz, and I hated it. But yeah, so I think that'd be a great, honestly, just permanent mode for comp, or at least one of the permanent modes. And I like physics idea of having it rotate in trials. I don't think it should be permanently in trials. Like, I mean, you already can kind of put together what I think about trials. I think it, should be its own unique feel and whatnot. But
sure.
I like it.
Okay.
For comp, but I agree. I don't think it should be in everything though, or like the standard.
I can't lie, I'm very surprised by your guys' answers. I thought for sure, because like there's been a lot of really positive feedback around checkmate because of the reasons that you guys mentioned, where like the ability spam is just kind of egregious across the board in PvP. It's not super fun and engaging to always fight against, as you guys have noted, with different frustrations of abilities. And that's actually something that like it's carried over from the PvE side as well. One of the issues we were talking about was like how powerful the 3.0 subclasses are and how frequent your abilities are up, that it almost devalues like the loot chase on the PvE side of the game, because you can just use abilities. Like they have almost infinite uptime. So and for very little like it's a very low barrier to entry too to get to that point. Like the builds aren't super complex. It's like, do I have 100 Rezel or not? Do I have these couple mods on for my favorite YouTuber? Yes or no? And it's like the build clicks, right? Which I think is cool, and you get that fantasy, but also it does take away from like that decision making just across the entire game. And we've heard it from PvE creators, we've heard it from PvP creators now. Like the ability spam, it's tough because I get Bungie's stance on like they don't want to tone it back too much because you lose that magic, that power fantasy, and that can feel really bad if you pull the curtain back too quickly. So I do sympathize with them in that regard, but it clearly, like, it seems like from most of the feedback we've received that ability uptime should be drawn back a bit. And one of the things that you actually spoke about, and then we'll dive into the TWID, that I think needs to be changed just at a basic UI level. When you started talking about the tiers of supers, I honestly forgot that they categorized them that way. Like I to be honest, it's not, as far as I'm aware, it's not visible in the game anywhere, is it?
No, you just
you just have to know that it exists, right?
You can see the base.
Look at your timer on your intellect.
And you're like, oh, well, that must be something. I mean, it's,
that's gotta be one of the higher tiers.
That's gotta mean something.
Yeah, so those were a couple standouts. But honestly, yeah, surprised by your guys' take, because, yeah, well, you'll see here in a sec. We're gonna dive into the TWID now.
It is fun. Like, not saying it's like I do love it. I specifically, you know, being able to challenge a corner and not have to worry about a sniper every second or a fusion. Like being able to slide a corner and challenge with a primary without getting ability or like special weapon is really nice.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
a good
I mean,
change.
keep in mind that the change, like, there's not been a more innovative change to PvP in, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Fizz, in particular, like, there hasn't been a more innovative change to PvP. I can't remember. It's got to be like years and years and years, like 3-4 years, like since this special ammo change in Checkmate, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about like let my devs rock, you know? Like a superficial answer would be putting ammo on the wall again. That's straightforward, you
Bring
know?
back
Like, that
ammo
didn't
box.
necessarily, yeah, that didn't necessarily like work. Now this is truly innovative, where you've got to get some damage in and you've got to cap some points, and you build up to that special ammo, and then you can rock. But it incentivizes that primary like gameplay. Let's keep on making changes like that. Like let's keep on thinking at that level and let my devs rock. You know what I'm saying? Like, please. They
Not
come up
everyone
with some,
enjoys
they
that,
got stuff,
Sure.
man.
Sure.
That's the reality, is like not everyone enjoys that. Some people just want to go in and play Team Scorched, you know, like
Hey, and that's cool. And I've said
But
it
that's
a
why you
million
should give
times
options.
too. You know, that Checkmate is niche for a reason. People love their special weapons. People love going on those special weapon streaks, and that's why I don't agree. Like everybody here, I think that Checkmate should be the standard across the board, or that special ammo mechanic should be, you know, across the board. But it is a, you know,
There's a lot of potential there. Clearly, like it's a good addition to the game.
I want to go on so many tangents. Go to the next
Let's,
question.
we're gonna move on. So moving on to the TWID, I'm gonna read through this. I don't expect you guys to follow along, so I'll try and paraphrase as much as I can.
Where's the link? They just tweet it.
They tweeted it out today, yeah. So
Go get it.
the road to Season 23 from the Crucible Strike Team. Hey everyone, we're here to give you an update on our efforts to update the Crucible experience. Let's preface by clarifying that these are not all the things that we're working on, nor are they all that we will be shipping for Season 23. That said, these are all features that we feel will have the most impact on the overall Crucible experience, including rewards, matchmaking, playlists, and modes. Our goal is to steer the Crucible experience in a direction that satisfies our most dedicated PvP players. Our updates won't all be perfect, but we will be iterating. We're actively taking feedback and data from forums, social media, survey results, and analytics to drive our decision-making process. Some changes will be more immediate. For example, checkmate tuning, while others will take time to process spawning data. Let's take a few steps back, where we talked about some mid-season patch changes, including checkmate, matchmaking, spawning. These changes went live October 17th. So looks like changes they'd made to checkmate, reduce heavy ammo spawn frequency, and increase the score to win in checkmate control. Matchmaking compressed the skill band, effectively loosening parameters of skill-based matchmaking for control playlist. Spawning. We made some targeted adjustments for spawn points and Altar Flaming Cauldron. So those are smaller things. At the time of writing this, we're still gathering data on the spawning changes, so we won't be taking any immediate action, but on the topic of checkmate and matchmaking, we are actively iterating based on feedback and analytics within the season. Checkmate. We just tuned bows and hand cannons again in this week's patch. We wanted to reduce the damage that bows deal overall and reduce the damage hand cannons deal on body shots while keeping their optimal time to kill as it is now. This will make them far less forgiving when missing headshots than they currently are in Checkmate, giving them a more appropriate risk-reward balance. That should also give other weapons more room to compete. Matchmaking. While skill compression is functioning as expected, matchmaking times are normalizing as match skill deltas are widening. This is affecting a greater number of lower skill players than intended. In general, expect some back and forth adjustments as we fine-tune the configuration. All that said, enough about Season 22, let's look further ahead. Let's talk playlists. One of the things you'll notice in Season 23 are updates to the Crucible menu. We're reintroducing a new 3v3 quick play mode, introducing a new 6v6 quick play node that consists of 6v6 party and relentless, rotating control modes, and a new 6v6 unranked playlist, revising which modes rotate through each node. What are your guys' thoughts on that? That's a lot to take in, like, already. We don't know much about them, but it sounds like they're adding a bunch of new game modes and playlists. Have they had a 3v3 what was that? A 3v3 quick play node?
Not since like Skirmish and D1, I don't think.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be Showdown 3v3 quick play. Interesting. That's kind of wild. Okay. So
I'm just reading again and kind of just soaking it in.
No worries.
So 6v6 unranked, and what's the difference between unranked and quick play? Do we know?
I think it's just I have no idea.
Or is that just they're just saying there's a new mode?
Oh, unranked Sparrow Control is the name of the game mode. So looks like it's just like a totally for fun playlist, not like kind of away from the normal PvP experience is kind of what I'm gathering.
So quick play has skill, like this one won't have skill. Interesting. I'm just trying to gather it.
I'll keep going because they'll probably provide more context.
Yeah.
The updated nodes will prioritize different matchmaking elements, integrate varied gameplay rotations, and some will host PvP events like Iron Banner and Trials of Osiris. Here's how the node functions. 3v3 quick play prioritizes connection and latency, rotates through weekly modes. Will start in Season 23 with Elimination and Showdown. Trials takes over this node when active. 3v3 ranked prioritizes rank for matchmaking, but if rank and skill are widely different, it blends the two. As an example, an adept skill player who is platinum rank will be playing with other platinum ranked players. However, if an adept skill player is down in the silver rank, they may be placed in gold rank or low platinum rank games. Affects competitive division rank, random playlist including survival, higher weight, and countdown rush lower weight. Interesting. What do you think about the 3v3 ranked mode, the fact that if you're in silver, you could be playing all the way up in platinum games because of your skill level?
I mean, I am an advocate that in a ranked mode, it should just go based off your rank, but that's pretty controversial.
I think
I don't agree so at
that,
all.
practically speaking, that may not necessarily be the way to give us rewarding games as far as connection and latency, though. I mean, they'd have to make some more substantial changes to, the actual like gameplay loop and also rewards as well to get the population thick enough to the point where people would only be able to play, folks within their actual rank. So the blending is more of a practical measure, I feel.
I hadn't thought about that and with population wise, because I mean it's just speaking personal experience going in and obviously this is they can't cater to the 1%. I get it, but going in and doing my placement matches and then being as rank 0 or like a rank 300, whatever it is, and just playing ascendant like max rank people on my first games to like start my grind. You're essentially playing 5,500 people all the way up to 5,500, and that seems weird to me.
Yeah, I think
it's exhausting.
A game that does it really well, I think, is Overwatch. Their rank system, I'm not sure if you guys have played much, but they do a really good job. They tell you what the overall like level of the lobby is. So they'll be like, okay, this is a gold 1 lobby. You might have players that are in Silver 2 or Silver 3. You might have players that are Plat 1, and it's kind of a blend of like your entire team's ranks and to try and make it a fair match. That I feel like is a system that's done well. An example where I feel like it's not done in a great way is the current Apex Legends rank system, where it's completely SBMM based ranks as you try and climb from bronze to Apex Predator. And so like the other day, Sepp and I were playing Apex, and it was like we were facing triple Masters badge players in bronze 2 lobbies in a ranked game. Like that feels bad. So I feel like as long as they have for sure. As long as they have these like those tighter bands on it, I feel like it's fine, like Tony said. But yeah, it's
Tony did bring up a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, well, another point as well, the difference between some of those games and Destiny 2 is the fact that it's really tough to nail down what people's skill level is.
Yep.
Right? Because
rank is not always skill.
You know what I'm saying? Like rank is not always skill, but I'm speaking more towards the impact of build crafting in this game. You know, somebody can equip, throw on certain builds, certain weapons and whatnot, and they can greatly exceed, their actual like skill level with the average, I guess, like meta weapons as opposed to the best meta weapons. There's such a separation between the two of what you're able to do. Right. People put on meta and it's just like they climb, 0.5, a whole 1 KD or something like that, between the average games in one day and another day. Right. People win and lose games based on the Monarch, People win and lose games based on a sniper sometimes, but that is actually less of a thing now than it has been in the past. Actually, I'm pretty happy with the direction that snipers are slowly going. So when that happens, basically it's tough to then nail down where people's skill is, in order to appropriately place people in matches that are fair.
Right. It's a incredible tangent, so I won't go too deep, but that's kind of what I was touching on with Destiny. Competitive won't ever be what I want it to be because there's too much variety in this game, and like I want the old Halo 3 social and ranked where like there's multiple play like Slayer, like you all have the same weapons and the same like abilities whatever, and and then like a shoddy snipers thing. But then to do that, you'd all have to have the same base level. You can't go in as a new player with a blue sniper and compete against like my occluded with snapshot and auto, it's just not going to be the same. Anyways, continue with the.
So it's a very good point. So as we move down, we have the 6v6 unranked, prioritizes connection, latency, and skill for loose-based skill-based matchmaking. Rotates through different variations of control, including control, checkmate control, sparrow control, and momentum control. Iron Banner takes over this node when active. 6v6 quick play, prioritizes connection and latency. Rotates through weekly nodes, consolidates party and relentless nodes. So it seems like the 6v6 quick play doesn't have SBMM at all. And the 6v6 unranked has very loose skill-based matchmaking. I know people are typically against SBMM. It
feels like it should be reversed in my head.
For 6v6 unranked?
I just feel like 6v6 unranked versus quick play. Like quick play sounds like it should be the one that's.
I think the unranked is what they're doing is like this is like the modes we know, so like the control things like that. I think the names are kind of confusing. Quick play is like the fun LTM mode, so like with the Scorch cannons and with the Sparrow mode and things like that. I think is more so.
Yeah, I got
Well, I mean, one saying 6v6 unranked, does that mean by default 6v6 quick play is ranked? Like, I just feel like they could tighten that up. We're being a little bit nitpicky.
The wording is confusing a little bit. So unranked sounds like their typical standard 6v6
skill-based matchmaking versus. That seems like the most, like the big header for each of them. One is skill-based matchmaking loose, and the other one's connection-based. That's where our party mode is. Mayhem obviously is connection-based right now. Same thing for relentless versus the other stuff above it. So
okay,
I'm
I'm going to keep this very tight because this could be a subject, and we'll touch on it later, that could go for literally 30 minutes on its own. In one sentence each, are you in favor of SBMM, yes or no?
Izzy, go first.
For me, no. For the game, yes. I think it's one of those things where like I am the demographic that is made to suffer in this circumstance.
I'm just so good.
Well, I mean, that's just
no, I'm just trolling. I'm just trolling.
For it's not even about me. It's about like anyone that is like above average. Like if you are above average or better than that, you are the demographic that is going to suffer in that circumstance. But the truth is that that demographic is smaller than the average and below average. So
and the average below average also helps feed population in the playlist, so it is kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, so for me, I don't care about SBMM. It doesn't bother me. It's annoying, but it's whatever. I will be getting mine. It's the way that I look at it. I'm gonna get mine one way or another. But I just wish that the game itself, like the actual sandbox, was more enjoyable to play. Is all. So like changes like airborne effectiveness, like we've talked about, and all those things. I don't like the SBMM is not the problem to me. It's the actual sandbox itself.
Okay, so. Fair. Joey.
Yes and no. It's really tough. Like I was saying, ranked should prioritize the rank, like the rank mode, the skill, the factor shouldn't be a skill-based factor. It should be primarily the rank, and it seems like they're trying to get some different nodes to give you kind of, your choice of what you want to play. And I like that because I know you said one sentence. It's a run-on sentence. I've played with one of my friends like years ago in Destiny who just, not to sound mean, but they just didn't play very many first-person shooters and were just getting destroyed. And they're playing against people of my skill, and that makes me sad because I don't want them to get wrecked. So I see that it has a place. They should be able to go in and play people around their skill and not feel like they're getting demolished. So there is a place for both. And it's just, if I'm gonna be playing against Diffizzle every god match, like I should be getting rewards for having to sweat unbelievably every game. It should be the high rank level, if that makes sense.
And just for participating against Diffizzle, by the way, like the Fizz, I don't know if anybody has recognized, but he's evolved over the last couple of years, people. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember the last time that he used a hand cannon shotgun. If he ain't using a hand cannon shotgun, I'm losing that game 100% of the time. So
what, me?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I use hand cannon shotgun all the time right now.
Every I'm just saying, like whenever I face you last couple, I just don't need you to evolve, baby. I got no chance. I got no chance, man.
I just play the game the way it is
no,
of
course. I'm just poking at you. Of course. My point is, like there should be, like, if it's gonna be a sweat, period, no matter who I'm playing with, it's gonna be a sweat. Like the rewards, we gotta be showered just for participating.
Agreed. And I think outside of just PvP rewards too, I think like one thing that plagues you guys is you get like virtually no access to the endgame currencies that PvE playlists do as well, like Ascendant alloys or anything for like craftable weapons, which I feel like should not be the case. But anyways,
do you have a question later about Trials loot and everything?
Yes, just in
cool.
Yeah, Tony. Quick answer. SBMM, yes or no?
Yes. Corners, like that's the point behind playlists. Just provide me a corner where I can find like niche 1%, whatever you want to call it, rewarding play. Give me great rewards, for playing in those sweats. Ensure that oppressive elements don't dictate the outcome of those games. Ensure that folks aren't pushed to run the absolute most oppressive, least rewarding elements of the game, so that we can all have kind of a rewarding time. It's got to exist, because if skill-based matchmaking, I've come around to it, if it doesn't exist at this point, then we're just not gonna maintain the pop. We're not gonna grow the pop. it's just such a. I mean, this game has been out for how long? It's just such a disparate, skill gap at this point. So yes.
I mean, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of the community who's outraged against SBMM just fails to realize is like, as much as it sucks at times, like that is what helps keep players engaged in those playlists alongside loot incentive, obviously. But like, if you just come in and you get stomped by Fizz 5 games in a row, you're probably not going to come back and play Crucible again until like next season or maybe ever. But on the flip side of that, for Fizz or for any like person in the higher tier, any of you guys, right? Like, their loose skill-based matchmaking in quick play should be a thing. I don't think you guys should be fighting like new lights or things that are coming in like where they're clearly very low skill level or on the lower side of the skill band. But it should be wide. Like, so as they've noted, I think they've got it right, is like the loose skill-based matchmaking, but that should be like from the top 1% down to like the 30th percentile. And then like people down in that skill bracket, until they start slaying out in those lower tiers, maybe they don't get introduced into that next group until they're ready or something of that nature. I don't know. I'm not a dev. I don't know how to do that perfectly. But the one thing I think you guys said as well is like, it has no place in ranked. That is the purpose of a rank, is to determine your skill level, not have a SBMM within ranked.
Agreed.
That's just doubling
and we certainly
down.
don't have the networking to support like putting like skill-based matchmaking measure on top of skill-based matchmaking measure on top of another skill-based matchmaking measure.
Right.
But I'll double down and say this again just to make it very, very clear. Like I think skill-based matchmaking 100% has a place in this game. I feel like everybody should have a corner of PvP that they enjoy and find rewarding, and it's up to Bungie to bring that through, to execute on that. But like the larger big picture here is that the sandbox, the playlists, the development should certainly like cater to the larger demographic first, which is that big hump in the bell curve first, most definitely. But there's got to be a second balance pass for the people on the edges as well. That's required, and when you do that, we can find rewarding gameplay for everybody. And the example that I use is just like, again, I don't mind skill-based matchmaking in my playlists, but the biggest frustration in that situation beyond connections, I guess, is really just the you will literally just find the most distilled oppressive measures, that the game provides, the most oppressive build crafting, and it's just simply not fun to play most times, and it's super, super exhausting and not rewarding. It's one thing if I'm exhausted because I had a great time and a long play session and it's just rewarding. I want to come back tomorrow and do it again. It's something completely different where I don't get any sort of rewarding gameplay where it's just I move one way and then like I have to stop gameplay because it's a Titan barricade or it's a well or some sort of ease of use. You get my point. It's got to be rewarding in that atmosphere as well.
100%.
Both intrinsically and also extrinsically with regards to loot.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I want to touch on before we go is I think one thing they've tried to do to counter like the skill-based matchmaking is lobby balancing, and I think that's honestly even worse. It just makes the issues worse. I think lobby balancing will naturally happen, right? But I think the loose SBMM, and having... So, like, you guys heard it here first. Like, these are very high-end players that are in favor of SBMM being in the game in some way, shape, or form, which I think a lot of people who probably were tuning into this podcast knew SBMM was going to be brought up, and they were like, oh, they're going to say it should be gone, right? Like, that's everyone's first instinct is to think, oh, the streamers just want to crush all the low-level players for YouTube videos and all this nonsense, which is just not true. On the flip side of that, I asked the community to realize that, like, natural matchmaking will happen. Sometimes you're going to be this person stomping. Sometimes you're going to get stomped. And you just kind of have to accept that there are times where you're just going to have to GG go next. I got outplayed. And, hopefully the loose SBMM makes it varied enough that it's enjoyable and you want to continue playing, like Tony said. So
just to play off of that real quick, it'll be a quick one. I have no idea how hard it would be to implement this as a dev. Like, I feel like we have to say that with everything. It's like, we're not devs. We have no idea how hard everything is. But if there was some way to do like a rematch protection, like at least right after, because like it can be demoralizing
great point.
matching somebody in trials, getting stomped, and going right back in and matching the exact same team. Like that sucks. And like or alternatively, like I feel bad playing the same team back to back, you know, like or in comp 2, like just being able to requeue and be like, all right, we're not going to get that team again, at least for the next couple games would be glorious.
Especially on literal game 7 for a lot of folks as well.
Like that's it. Yeah, it
agree.
sucks. I don't know if there's a way to do that, but that would be dope.
Dude, I remember there was a time from back in the day on Xbox, we would face Darkstar in comp like literally 5 games in a row, and I was like, bro, please someone else. Like it was just
bro,
it was
in my legend comp days helped, like back in the day, we would have like 7 tabs open, be like, all right, Pierre's matching, Frost is waiting, like okay, ZK just got go ZK just got a game. Like it was awful, dude. It was awful.
The anti-stream snipe.
Literally.
Okay, we're gonna move on. So
that's a great point.
3v3. Regarding the 3v3 ranked competitive node, we decided to simplify it by reducing the number of game modes in the playlist, cycling between 1 deathmatch mode and 1 objective mode. As such, Countdown Rush is leaving labs and entering competitive as the objective mode, and survival will be the deathmatch mode for Season 23. While the 3v3 quick play node will rotate the elimination and showdown for Season 23, Rift is sitting on the bench for now, but may very well return to the starting lineup in the near future. We also plan to look at adding more game types into the 3v3 quick play rotator, along with potentially experimenting with testing rule sets and spawn changes for trials and competitive maps. 6v6. As mentioned above, the 6v6 unranked node will rotate through different variations of control in addition to the original control. These variations are simply control with a modifier. The core mode rules remain the same, while the sandbox is slightly altered. By rotating modified control modes, we're segueing into a future where a mix and match of modes and modifiers where we mix and match modes and modifiers and enable players to do the same. This is a long-term goal, and we'll talk more about that at a later point in time. The new 6v6 quick play node is a consolidation of the party and relentless rotators of the past. I think one thing is, like, I'm glad they're trying to simplify this, because my god, even just trying to read and understand all the different the different segments is wild. This simplifies the number of 6v6 nodes available and maintains parity with the other 3v3 nodes.
So when they say party and relentless, do they mean like mayhem and like scorched and stuff, or like what is the party and relentless mode?
I'm gonna defer to you guys on that. I have no idea.
What are those rotators?
What the party is mayhem. Relentless is like Clash. Relentless supremacy. It's in the spot right now that
Gotcha.
Clash 6v6 quick play is on their graphic right here. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So relentless is just connection, but as it currently is just connection based. Clash supremacy. And there's one more, I just can't remember what it is. And then party is things like mayhem, anything that's just like silly.
Gotcha.
Right.
And also, what is it? It's whatever the scorch. Yeah, scorch.
So
I want to ask also, like,
sure.
Where's supremacy? Best game mode in the game for sixes? I mean, outside of like the super, outside of the super regen going nuts, they should, a very simple solution. Although, I'm not deeply thinking on this, is just to make sure that you get an equal amount of super energy per crest that you pick up, as opposed to an escalating amount of super energy. But best, because it's an objective based clash slayer, but those crests can drop anywhere, so it promotes movement as well. And it promotes people to move into a position that's going to place them into the next objective. So if people don't naturally want to get into that flow state, the game is going to incentivize them to do so by just at the very least, like gravitating and moving towards the crest that just dropped off of, somebody they defeated, their team defeated, or off of somebody that's on their team that got defeated. So,
Yep.
Yeah, best Slayer mode in the game. I feel like it's a great evolution, for Slayer modes just in general. They just need to tweak it just a little bit, and it's kind of goated.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that feedback. So next we have Sparrow Control. One of the rotating control modes is Sparrow Control. It's control but with sparrows. I know, shocking. It's incredible. The bug has become a feature. We hope you'll enjoy it on select weeks of Season 23. Keep an eye out for a unique medal that will only be attainable during those weeks. This mode's playlist map will be curated and weighted towards larger maps. I think that's pretty cool to get the more casual audience interested. And the fact that there's actually going to be like a PvP medal associated to it, I think is kind of cool.
I wonder if it's going to be running people over.
Oh, God. Checkmate. So this is why I wanted to bring up that question before we got to reading this. We plan to make Checkmate Control the primary control mode for the first few weeks of Season 23. To be transparent, Checkmate has revealed and highlighted a community desire for a refined sandbox in the Crucible. We eventually want to take some of those lessons learned and apply them to a base Crucible experience, not just as a labs mode. We're not ready to slap Checkmate onto everything just yet, but we are ready to expose the modifier to a larger audience and gather more feedback and data. Some changes and features related to Checkmate in Season 23. The ability cooldown penalty has decreased from 50 to 30%. Note, this is based on some tuning changes coming with Season 23. As always, we'll be monitoring this closely to see how it plays and adjust accordingly. Crucible Labs will include Checkmate 3v3 Clash and Checkmate 3v3 Countdown Rush. Trials Labs will include Checkmate Dominion. We'll be making additional mid-season tuning adjustments based on feedback. What are your guys' thoughts on this one? I think this is one of the biggest points of this twin. Why don't we go to Fizz?
Checkmate Dominion. I think that's good. I think that's where they should go. I don't know. I think everyone's opinion on what trials should be or what it is has changed over the years. I think they said recently that they want it to be like a pro AM tourney, like a couple months ago. So I think if that is what they're going for, then Checkmate is a good way of doing that.
What's can you clarify what pro AM tourney like means?
I mean, I'm assuming competitive, right? Like, isn't that a pro AM tourney? Like
pro/amateur tourney.
Okay, well, I mean,
they want them to be competitive, sweaty matches, is what you're saying.
Relatively, it's not like there's $300 million.
Yeah, I just didn't know what AM like meant. That's all. I just didn't know.
It's amateur.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm assuming if that's what they're going for, that's a good way of doing it. So
cool.
And I'm not opposed to it personally. So
it does seem to address a lot of the feedback you guys were talking about of the ability frequency.
Yeah, it would do that.
So that's a very
it's kind of sorry.
Go ahead, Joey.
It's kind of like what Physics was saying about. Oh wait, I think it was, or maybe it was. I don't know. Somebody's talking about the how it's placeholder or like not really addressing the core root of the problem. It's kind of working around it, because I don't know. I still think like I would at least eliminate like Fizz is saying, everybody's view of what trials should be is going to be different, but I kind of miss just straight up elim trials, like that kind of push and dance of going around the map and getting the pick and playing. Like that's
what is in your view, what is the problem?
Well, I think a lot of the meta and a lot of like the Titan shields and the bubbles is because of Dominion itself, like the zone popping up every 30 seconds, like that. It just feels like it's, and then slapping Checkmate on top of that. It just seems like it's trying to fix symptoms of the problem versus like, because if it was regular elimination, there wouldn't be as many bubbles. There wouldn't be as many shields, like I'm assuming, and
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
So what do we go back to?
I think the only thing that is different really with Dominion and normal trials is, so what happens, the whole reason Dominion is implemented into the game at all was because people were complaining. People were complaining that people sit in the back of the map for 1 minute and 30 seconds, which was an issue, I think.
Thank you for bringing this up, because I was going to bring that up. So that's a great point.
So what Dominion accomplishes, and Dominion was actually really, I loved Dominion, and I still do think Dominion's a good mode. I think the issue is abilities, and I think that if they address abilities, I think a Dominion will be a lot more well received. But
I would agree.
I think what you're suggesting, or one thing that, well, if I guess you're entitled to that, but I think what would happen and what you don't understand is like, even if they make it back to elimination, what's going to happen is people are just going to hide for 1:30 seconds. Like I'm telling you right now, the hard meta is exactly the same. It's not any different. It would be exactly the same. People would just sit in the back of the map for 1:30 seconds instead of pushing the zone. And then when the zone came up, instead of at the beginning of the round using abilities to control the zone, they would use it at the end of the round. It would just be slower. It would just be a slower version of what we have now.
It's just Dominion, but 1:30 spawn.
Yeah,
on
exactly. That is what Dominion is.
Pretty
That
much.
is Dominion is not really any different than normal trials. It's just the zone comes up in 30 seconds instead of 1:30 seconds. So
what do you think about like a zone popping up different like times or like a certain amount of
That's
rounds?
RNG.
I don't know.
That's RNG. That's that you don't want RNG like in a.
Yeah, that's true.
I think part of the problem with Dominion as well is a lot of the maps are not made for it. Dominion is a
Yeah.
mode that is based around a zone. And the thing is one, for example, last week on Pacifica, some teams will spawn with map control. The other team will not have map control. And that happens constantly. I think for Dominion, it would be good to have symmetrical maps where each team has equal opportunity to get to the zone and control the zone, and it really comes down to who fights for it rather than, oh, I spawned up on this side of the map, good luck.
That's a great
win.
point.
But-
There's honestly been things that were echoed in PvE as well, Fizz, where like, we're coming off of a game that's been around for 7 years, right? Like maps that have been around for a long time, PvE activities that have been around forever. We started with double primary on the PvE side, right? Like
Yeah.
We started with triple melees.
yeah, I mean, it was just like things like that. Like the game just doesn't always necessarily fit. Like that is 100% just like a catalyst behind why Dominion feels bad in certain scenarios. I personally find this to be good, and like as a PvE player, I feel like the less ability spam, because I go in there and I'll play and I'll grind out the weapons I need to get for PvE, but I'm like, God, dude, I don't know how many times I can fight a bubble on one weekend and have it be enjoyable. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
if that helps with that, I'm all for it. I definitely think Fizz's point of like the maps just not being built for it. Hopefully the map pack coming in 2024, we don't know when that's gonna happen, but hopefully it brings back some good maps, and hopefully they bring the heat with the new ones, because I think the last few haven't necessarily been crazy well received, but
The last two, few is 3.
hey, we got Fragment in Forsaken.
Yeah.
Fragment was Fragment? No, Fragment was Shadowkeep, I think.
It was a long time ago. It's like,
Yeah, I think that was Shadowkeep. I think
Yeah.
Shadowkeep was the last time we got an actual like new map.
yeah. Yeah.
Disjunction.
I just feel like we should be accurate about it.
Yeah,
Real is real.
Yeah.
give credit where it's due.
Yeah, exactly. I do agree. I agree with both of you guys. Jay for definitely saying Dominion or elimination doesn't really like solve like the base issue, right? And then Diffizzle saying that the base issue is like the abilities first and foremost. I completely agree that the meta would still be the meta no matter whether it's elimination or not. It'd actually just be worse. So in that regard, I do prefer like Dominion. I think Dominion would just be a lot better if at the end, when the zone pops up, it's not about a bubble, it's not about a well, it's about that gunplay. It's about
Well, it's still going to be
the
about.
elimination.
It's still going to be about abilities. Nothing is going to
Of course.
change
Well,
that.
of course.
It's
I'm
just
not
you're
I'm
not going to be able
specifically
to
talking
spam.
about the abilities, that create an issue currently right now that kind of, somebody puts up a Titan barricade and you got to start thinking, what you're going to do. And it's just so simple. It's just a simple Titan barricade, but most people got to start thinking about what they're going to do.
Be able to capitalize on mistakes.
That barricade, goes up. But my solution for the longest time has just been to have Amkar spines, and just to have that and then just push them. But
Here's an interesting question from chat, actually, just to butt in really quick. What if
Yeah, of
all
course.
abilities were deactivated when the zone came up?
that's too jarring. That's
Also you could work around that. So like, let's say you wait till 1 second and then you put a
Pop the
bubble on the zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Or
Yeah.
you put a shield down. Like abilities are fine. I think you
Yeah.
should be able to have abilities. It's just frequency. So like if you're going to put a shield down, you have to play that shield really well. Like it has to be a
Yeah.
very good shield. You can't just like, I'm gonna throw this shield down on this corner like at the beginning of the round to like get free. Because that's the thing is people who use like shields as a way to get information for
Yep.
free. It
Yep.
costs you your shield, but you get your shield back in like 30-something seconds.
Exactly.
So who cares?
Yeah.
So
true.
like, if you're going to use your shield, you could use it for that, but then you're not going to be able to use it to play res or to have control of the
cab.
zone.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what.
100%. 100%. Yep. I agree. And
think-
I'll say this as well. Like I think it could be both. It can be both. You could have dynamic counters, like I said again, Tempest Strike to go over the shield. You can have dynamic counters, but at the same time, I recognize and agree with Fizz that I mean the same. I also agree with Bungie when Bungie said it themselves. You know, like either February of this year or last year, I can't remember, when they said that ability should be toned back a little bit as well. So I think both can exist.
This
I
is
think I just have rose tinted glasses when it comes to trials because it's like it's always been elimination, and then like at some point they're just like, nope, it's always Dominion now for all time.
you were
I
an
kinda
Elim
miss-
lover. Yeah, I mean, I get
I kind of
that.
missed
Well-
the, at least, you know, I liked when it was like once a month and they're trying it out, and then I missed when it just like it just became Dominion forever now.
Right.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well now we're gonna work around the new problem of Dominion, like, because that's just what it is now. That's
I'm
all
definitely with you. I think a lot of us are cool as well with just like a Slayer elimination type mode. It's just, you know, Destiny has kind of evolved on,
Yeah.
you know, the defensive measures, right? And
Yeah.
the way that people can control a point, an objective point, to the degree that, you know, when things slow down, you know, it just evolved. Destiny just evolved, and therefore the game mode has to evolve with it to kind of address where the direction of the game is going.
I'm gonna bring
Yeah,
this
sorry, I
up and
cut you off. Go ahead.
we're gonna keep moving, but there was another more interesting, I think, and more realistic solution would be a moving final zone, kind of like how Warzone, once you're in the final zone, like it will kind of like move and you have to shift along with it. Could also solve some of those issues. Could be kind of an interesting solution, honestly.
I'd
Because
try it.
yeah, that's actually really
That's
cool.
interesting.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to matchmaking and skill, and then, man, there's a lot. There's stuff about matchmaking and skill. We're talking about map spawning, competitive promotions, relegations, modes and rules, Trials of Osiris. We might be here the whole time, so I think the checkmate portion I really wanted to talk on. Honestly, I might go back to the questions I had slated for you guys just more generally, because I don't think any one tweet is going to change like how you guys are feeling about PvP, or like, you know, obviously we can't even judge at this point. So we've talked about a lot of these things already. So because we're running short on time, we're kind of coming up against the end of the 2 hours here. I wanted to ask a wider question that may end up being addressed in that twid or in later patches. But does PvP have enough loot incentive to keep players engaged right now? And Joey, I'll go to you first.
Oh boy. I don't know. I know we've been focused so much on trials. That's where my kind of brain orients to, like, end game PvP loot and stuff. Honestly, like, I honestly don't even do that much, like, quick play or just regularly farming for loot, like drops from shacks. I honestly might not even be the best person to ask.
Well, I do think you're good to ask
Unless
in that
you want to go to
situation.
trials, because I can talk about trials.
Well, I mean, if you're not engaging with quick play, that's an automatic flag to me that, like, there's just not really a reason to. Like, either the meta's so
there
unenjoyable
you
for
go.
you, or you
guess
just
that
don't
kinda
have a
answers it.
PvP incentive to want to dive in and grind for things. So I think you kind of answered it without answering it,
Yeah,
to be
there you go.
honest. Tony.
You said, does PvP have enough loot incentive to keep players engaged? Definitely not. Definitely not. I loved that poll that you did coming in this, where you said, you know, I think it was either PvE players, I think it was specifically PvE players, would they be more incentivized? Would you be more incentivized as a PvE player to play PvP if there was rare loot incentive, more rare loot incentive, and a lot of people said yes on that poll. I think it was kind of an overwhelming yes.
Yeah.
And so it has to be both. It has to be rewarding gameplay, where people are at the very least interested or not put off to come back and play PvP in order to get that rare loot. But there also has to be rare loot, whether we're talking about comp or whatever else. Like the expectation that population is going to be thick from Bungie at any point in time, when they don't really have too much of an incentive for us to be there, outside of rewarding gameplay that often is very spotty at best, depending upon the playlist. And that expectation is just like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
What about you, Fizz?
So I think the question is PV. I believe the question was, is PvP rewarding right now? Like,
does it have enough loot to keep you engaged?
Well, I think that depends what type of player you're asking that question, really, because if you're a newer player, I would say yes. If you're that's the thing is, as an older player, as someone that's been playing the game since the beta, since D1, we get everything as soon as it comes out. We're all like on top of it, farming it instantly, and we just have like everything. Like I have a hand cannon for every situation, an SMG for every situation, and auto so. When that's the case, it's very hard to add new things that add value to my arsenal and to an older player's arsenal. But if you're a newer player, all of those things, like for example, just to talk about the quick play or Crucible, weapons that you can get, there's Unending Tempest, which is, in my opinion, better than Immortal.
I was going to bring that up, actually.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yep. There's Riptide, there's the Blowout Rocket. I mean, there's options, right? But those things, if you're a hardcore player that's been playing the game and you farm for everything and have all of the best stuff, of course that stuff's going to have absolutely no value to you because you already have other things that do that, if like what it does, if not better than that.
Yeah. And that actually, it leads to another question, and this has been a very PvE-centric question, but do you think that post-Final Shape, like I don't think this is going to happen before Final Shape, and I wasn't even planning on asking you guys this, but you brought it up, and I think it's worth pulling the PvP side of the community as well. Would you be in favor of a natural loot reset after the Final Shape concludes? Like, do you think, like obviously sunsetting didn't go well the first time. Do you think that, with the end of the Light and Dark saga, like outside of a Destiny 3 resetting everything, do you think that players would be more open to a natural loot reset with the conclusion of a story that's more story driven versus just being like, hey, we're sunsetting everything that you have? Or would you be against that type of reset? And whoever wants to answer that first.
Okay, yeah. I guess I'll answer first because I was speaking last, but I don't know how I feel about that personally. I think it would be a good idea for them to just make Destiny 3 at that point. Like I think they should potentially. I don't know anything. I'm an armchair dev, so I don't know
100%.
anything. I don't know anything about anything, but I feel like they need to kind of start from scratch because there's a lot of systems that they could implement to the game. Like I think Destiny, even in its current state, could be competitive, and I think that's a big market that they're missing out on, and I don't understand why they've chose to do that. But I think that's just not the vision they have for the game. But I think if they were to create another game, they potentially could implement the systems to make that possible.
Yeah.
See, but
that kind of echoes
go ahead,
D2 though. No, you're good. Like that's what we were always saying about D1, about how it has the potential to be it, and then
have never wanted it.
Say what you will about D2 at the launch, but it was balanced.
yeah. Well, the thing is even in our current state, we could have a competitive. Like, look at Call of Duty.
Right.
Like, look at how Call of Duty competitive works. So the sandbox for Call of Duty is completely wacky and wild, and there's all these perks and abilities and kill streaks and attachments that are in the game in the base game. But when you go over to competitive, things are restricted, they're banned, and we could have something similar to that.
Agree.
It's just a lack of desire from the developers,
Yeah, collective will.
or from maybe not
From
the
management,
developers.
yeah.
Yeah, just management. So
Yeah.
whatever, whoever is making the decision, that's not what they want for the game. So, but I think if they were to make Destiny 3, that might be more possible. Like
Sure.
they might be able to make the game, mold it with the vision of it being like an MMORPG that has like, you know, those faucets, I guess.
Maybe,
or
but
those
two
Whether
things-
that's
two things for
realistic,
me, like,
we don't know. But yeah,
like-
Tony, go ahead.
you know, one is like if they don't have the collective will to do that in any really sort of meaningful capacity now with Destiny 2, what makes people think Destiny 3 is going to be any different?
Yeah, of course.
One,
It's
and-
just not
and-
what they want for the game. They've
and
made that
two,
apparent.
Of course. And two, you know, like Destiny 3, people keep on saying, man, you should just make a Destiny 3. Well, Destiny 2 is still going to be here. Like the same issue, the same question is going to exist. If the question is, should we sunset things? You know, hey, go make
How do-
Destiny 3. You know, like nothing's going to change. Like that question still exists for Destiny 2 because it's a live game. It's still going to be going during that development cycle.
What if
right?
they
So
get rid of it though?
they get rid of it?
Yeah, they could. What about look at Overwatch
I don't
or
think, I don't think that's practical though, considering
Why
Destiny
not?
2 is
They'd
there
have to
is there
move-
like
I also
all
don't think they
cosmetics
just
over
would
to
do
do
it.
that.
I mean,
But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
the
think that would
servers are
happen.
still alive, aren't they?
no, I'm saying like have they started working on Destiny 3?
I don't think they.
There's been no confirmation or
No.
anything.
Yeah,
like that.
not
Yeah,
even
I guess that's-
internally. It's not even
Yeah.
rumored.
So that was kind of like a my point is like if Destiny 3 is on the horizon, if that's planned, you know, we won't see it for a long time.
It will be a
Yeah,
very
100%.
long time.
So that being the case, I don't feel like that's particularly relevant to the conversation of should sunsetting, you know, be something that we should see in the near future, because I assume we're all talking about, okay, maybe like sunsetting next year. Well, Destiny 3 wouldn't be out for like several years from now. The same question remains, basically, is what I'm saying. So I don't necessarily see Destiny 3 as you know, a relevant part of the conversation when we don't think that's anywhere near,
So
you
Fizz's
know, actually coming to fruition.
Fizz's take was basically, if it's not Destiny 3, I don't want to reset. So we'll
Yeah.
take that POV. Tony, what is your take? So this is under the lens and the assumption that Destiny 2 is here to stay. It's a game that's been around for 7 years. Should we have a loot reset of some sort, like that's naturally story driven, especially when you consider again that like the current arc of Destiny that we know and we love, like, and the reason we play, like that universe that we know may be coming to an end or changing in some capacity. We don't know where they're going after the final shape. So should there be a story driven loot wipe? Obviously cosmetics and things like that would stay because you paid for them. That's a whole nother issue, but
Yeah.
resetting the loot that we've earned thus far.
Like, I guess I'm pretty ambivalent about it. I don't really care one way or another. Sunsetting really didn't hit me too hard either, like personally, because like I engage in casual playlists where I can still use my spare rations, you know? Like the only playlist that's power enabled PvP wise, the obvious, is Trials. So just because I can't use my spare rations in Trials, like it's not like it disappears out of my vault. You know, can I get some more vault
It doesn't
spaces
really
on you?
affect PvP players.
100%.
Yeah, so it's just like from now. I guess again, I'm not dismissing my PvE players, of course, you know, but speaking specifically from, you know, the perspective of PvP and a PvP player, you know, they can do whatever they feel as long as I agree it's something that feels naturally, you know, part of the process or part of the flow of what's going on in the game, story driven or otherwise.
Yeah.
Then I'm okay with whatever works, you know, best for the greatest pop on that one.
Yep. I mean, and there's questions coming from chat that are like, a loot reset would destroy the game. Why kill everything we worked for when the game is at the end of its life? Well, I think one thing is we don't know if this is at the end of its life. Bungie has specifically stated that they have plans for Destiny 2 post final shape outside of just the episodes. Like they were blatantly upfront asked, like, is this the end of D2? And they said no. Like they're going to continue developing this game, and I think it would be unwise for them to stop developing because this is their primary cash cow, especially while, you know, they're working on the development of something like Marathon. the continued success of Destiny is more important than ever, especially like after the Sony acquisition and the revenue misses that they've had that have come out recently and things like that. Like, they need to continue to keep players interested. So I think that I don't think the game's coming to an end in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, that's just my take on it. Joey, what about you?
Yeah, I echo these two. I'm kind of ambivalent. I like that word. It's where, you know, if it makes sense to do it, and that's kind of what the community wants, or it makes sense story wise or whatever, like, sure, but doesn't, kind of fine either way.
Okay.
Yeah, and as far as like PvE players, maybe PvE players wouldn't be as affected by it. They're understandably affected by it. I don't want to dismiss that. You know, the majority of the activities that PvE players engage in are light level enabled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Strikes. You know, like if you give people something engaging that they regularly engage in, that they enjoy, that they get loot incentive from, that is similar to like a quick play in PvP, like strikes, you know, that isn't light level enabled, that they can take their sunset weapons in and still like slay out and to make other people jealous, you know, in there. Well, what weapon is that? Whatever else, you know, then maybe, you know, people wouldn't be so up in arms on the even the PvE side with regards to sunsetting. Now, like I said, you know, strikes isn't going to solve everything, but I'm just saying, you know, maybe that might lighten the blow to the point where the positives would, you know, be elevated in this conversation versus so many negatives, so many understandable negatives, especially on the PvE side.
It's you know, I completely agree with where you guys are at. And honestly, so the PvE side of the community was heavily in favor of a loot reset. And for a lot of the reasons that Fizz said, where he's like, you know, as an endgame player, I don't really care about the new loot that comes out because I already have so many things in my vault, you know, that do a similar thing or better. You know, and I also think you know, there are new players, but there are, you know, Destiny is also a hobby for so many people. So they may not have as many hours as we do, but people have collected a lot of loot over time. There's only so many, you know, opening shot, snapshot, you know, range finder, whatever perks you look for on a hand cannon. There's so many versions of that you need, right? So like eventually loot interest just naturally dwindles. But there's also people in chat who are like, trying to keep me interested by throwing everything I've worked for hard in the trash just makes me never want to engage with anything in this game ever again. I think crafting weapons being a thing, it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring back sunsetting now, since you can literally craft your 5 out of 5 roll instead of grinding 10 plus hours for that same thing. I think part of what would make loot interesting in PvP for me is more of the Rose approach. I don't necessarily agree with it being like you get, what do they cap you at, like 1 pattern per character or something per week, or I don't even know how they one weapon per
one
week.
one rose drop every 3 games per character per week.
That's not craftable, I don't think, right?
No, it's
That's
not craftable, but like, yeah,
I get what he's saying. Yeah.
that like super limited drop cadence, I would rather have. So like, I think part of the thing for me is on the PvE side, I think everything being craftable is a mistake, because ultimately it devalues the natural god rolls that drop in the game, right? So like, you could get the best 5 out of 5 roll, you know, before you even earn the pattern. The issue is once you get the pattern, you're going to instantly delete that, because now you just want the same thing with enhanced perks. So like, that original drop virtually means very little to you, which I don't think is healthy in a looter shooter environment necessarily. So I don't, maybe like the end game weapons, like similar to Trials, aren't craftable. That encourages you to go and replay those activities. I think, you know, even with the natural vendors in the Crucible right now, like Shaxx with Riptide or Tempest or whatever it is, you can just spam turn in like token or the engrams and focus it and get that roll very quickly, especially if you're a player that, you know, has built up 70, 80, 99 engrams. You're probably going to get the roll you're looking for pretty quick, or one that's very good, right? So I think this just across all of D2, I would love to see like activity specific rare non-craftable loot return. That's like powerful loot that is it's a rare chance drop, and I know some players won't be in favor of that, but like, we have so many craftable weapons. Just give the endgame players like something to chase, the carrot on the end of the stick, the rose, but don't necessarily limit it, but also make it a rare thing where like, you know, you want to go and engage with those playlists because you want the god roll. And like, I feel like that's kind of the magic side of Destiny from a loot side that is missing at the moment.
I think there's a balance of like kind of scalable RNG that I think they still are trying to fine tune of like, you know, I did my time in Azkaban, 13 years of it. Like, just give me my rose that I want, you know.
And we talked about that actually a lot in the re-engaging the endgame panel. One of the things we talked about was like, the more you like with weapon crafting, I think it does ruin a lot of that incentive. So like maybe the endgame weapons, they have additional perks that aren't in the craftable version of the pool. You know, maybe it's, you know, as you rank up a vendor, I think what they actually do with the additional perks dropping in each column is a really good way to encourage you to like go and reset the vendor rank and rank up every season. Like that's a very cool way to do it. And to your point, like there has to be RNG protections. I feel like crafting's kind of become an RNG solution instead of like a protection. It's like the ultimate answer of like, oh, you want your 5 out of 5 god roll? Here you go, run 5 raids, select the pattern in the end chest, and you have just like the perfect 5 out of 5. Versus like, I would love to see the end game stuff not be craftable, or like have unique perks on the adepts that like aren't on those base weapons, or things of that nature where it feels a bit more special and natural to have that level of loot chase. But again, going back to your point, I think they're kind of doing that with exotics in raids, like in Run, where, you know, you do the triumphs, it increases your chance of getting conditional finality. You know, you do the vendor resets, you get additional perks dropping in each column, that betters your chances at getting the god roll, right? I think those are like healthy ways to do it. But yeah, I agree. They could, in a lot of different areas of the game, they could implement that instead of relying so heavily on crafting. But yeah, that's my personal take on it. Here's an interesting question getting towards the end of the panel, and this is one that's probably controversial, which is why I wanted to ask it intentionally. Is it healthy for PvE loot to be locked behind PvP and vice versa?
Yes.
Yes.
100%.
Wow. Okay, I'll let you guys start.
Play the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, this game is fantastic, and you know, not to diminish my love for PvP, but can any of us disagree that the PvE has been incredible overall, for especially the last couple of years? You know, narrative team, et cetera, et cetera. But and it's just like, breaks are good, you know.
Yeah.
Like when we take as creators, you know, just my specific perspective as a streamer, you know, when I'm incentivized to just go and check out something new, a new location, a new activity that I would not overall engage with, if there wasn't some god roll like hand cannon or shotgun behind it, you know, you end up feeling things. You end up, you know, getting that reprieve from some of the things maybe you're frustrated with PvP. And let's be completely honest with ourselves as well. If you play the game 8 hours a day, PvP wise, you're gonna be frustrated, period. It doesn't matter how good the game is.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter how rewarding the game is. So like, breaks are good, and to have that type of variety, it's the same thing where, you know, folks are finally coming around in this community to the fact that we should play other games, you know, to get those breaks, to get that type of variety. That's good for mental health. And so to at least be able to engage and interact with you know, something different outside of PvP, but even still just within Destiny 2 is a good thing. And it also just gets you to appreciate and maybe gets you hooked on that other like mode. So yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing, and it drives engagement across the entire game and not just one sector.
Awesome. Fizz?
Yep.
What exactly was the question? Sorry, I was...
Is it healthy for PvE loot to be locked behind PvP and vice versa?
I feel like, yeah. I feel like it is, to some degree. I think it's good to have options. So, like, I think, for example, we have, there's like, we have guns like the GL, like the new GL, for example. which is
From
slightly
Trials?
better. Yeah, from Trials, the new heavy GL, which
Cataphract.
is Cataphract, which is slightly better than Wendigo. Obviously, it in a comparison, it's way better than Wendigo, but Wendigo is still an option. It's just not better than Cataphract. I think it's healthy for the game.
Yeah, I mean, like, whether it's Time Lost Found Verdict for you guys, like back in the day where you had to go farm spoils and do the master challenges to get that, like, pinnacle shotgun, right? Like, at the time, it was the best PvP shotgun in the game, and you just spend or a really solid amount of time, or the Matador from Grasp, right?
Yeah,
like,
Grasp.
that was another
or
one.
Swordbreaker from Crota.
Yep.
1,000-yard
Or
stare.
Eyes Luna from Grasp.
Any of
you know,
those.
like 100, yeah.
And then vice versa, like the Cataphract from Trials, like right now, that's like the thing
That's
that people
hot.
are farming for. It's like the hot item that everybody wants, and that also helps the trial. Like those Trials weekends, I'm sure feel pretty great from a PvP
Yes.
player's perspective. You're like, hell yeah, dude, the population's booming.
It's quite literally by definition healthy for the game to increase population across the board.
Yeah.
Gets people playing other things.
The poll right now, is it healthy? Yes, I like that, 64%, and it's okay sometimes 25%. Only 10% saying that it has no place in the game. So
Yeah. And I'm with the it's okay sometimes as well. You know, I think that it shouldn't just be, you know, like
there needs to be
everything.
both.
There needs to be both, and I just think that what you decide that you want to put behind PvP or PvE, especially when it's you know, heavily, you know, applicable to the opposite activity, I just think, you know, we should be thoughtful about that to ensure it just doesn't, you know, and what activity you put that behind. You know, I don't want people to get burnt out. You
Absolutely.
know, engaging in an activity that they don't necessarily enjoy, just to get something that they really, really want behind it. So
Someone goes, just don't put good weapons in Gambit, thanks. But anyways, so next
Word.
question as we get near the end of the 2-hour block. Which retired D2 maps would you like to return as part of the map pack? And also as part of that, an additional layer of the question I want to ask is, what are you looking for in the new maps that like hasn't worked with Disjunction? And I can't even remember the name of the newest map, but seems like those two haven't been super well received.
Multiplex.
Multiplex, yeah. So
Yeah.
what, I guess, Joey, I'll start with you this time. What would you like to see as part of the retired maps come back as part of that map pack? What would you like what how would you like those maps, like what are the other new maps missing, or like what notes aren't they hitting for you that you would like to see in newer map development?
Which ones should we bring back?
symmetry.
What I can't hear you what you're saying.
I said rotational symmetry. That's
Rotational symmetry. Yeah, like kind of echoing our points from earlier, having it be a balanced map, especially for Dominion Trials or whatever. But purely from just a fun standpoint, I miss the maps with the Cabal jumpers. What was that one? What was that one map?
Oh my god.
I'm looking it up.
Retribution, I think.
No,
Or
no,
Legion's
there
Gulch.
were a couple.
Legion's Gulch.
Legion's Gulch, yeah.
Legion's
Retribution
Gulch,
should
and
definitely come
then
back,
there was another. I think there was another one either in D1 or D2.
There
where it's
was one
just-
in D1. There
Yeah, it was
was
like a Mars. It was a big Mars map. Like the launch was huge.
So what part of Carrie, I'm gonna rephrase this question a little bit. What part of Disjunction do you not enjoy versus like the other larger maps that you're talking about? Like what elements of those work well versus just Disjunction being the way it is?
Did it launch alongside Iron Banner or no? I just remember playing Eruption and going and getting kills and be like, all right, time to run across the map for 12 seconds and die anyways. Like
Right.
it did not flow well at all. It's you go here and then it flips and then you go here and then it flips. It just it did not
Yeah, I
I
feel
think
very
that's
good.
a problem more with that game mode than anything.
True.
I hate that game mode, by the way. That's like, I adamantly do not like that one. That one is my least favorite ever, by the way. But
How do you really
Disjunction
feel about
equals
it?
far spawns, people camping lanes with bows, scouts, pulses. I think that a lot of people are not in favor of the swamp portion of that map being like that wide open.
It's also that's a good point. It's spawning and then running for 5 seconds just to get close to the. It's like it just takes you out. It's same with like Cathedral now. You spawn so far away. Nobody's ever even in that zone, and you just have to. It's just a running simulator
Right.
to like get there.
I think the same
Well-
thing with the new map as well. It's pretty huge on top of that.
It's cleaner. So like rotational symmetry is kind of like what everybody.
And explain what that means
The
for
maps-
the
the
viewer
maps
at
that-
home who may not know.
Rotational symmetry is the ability to javelin is like a perfect example of that. You know, the ability to get from one place to another, especially when we're talking about like objective points, A, B, C, by having different routes to rotate the map. You know, Fortress is the most underrated rotational symmetry map like in this game. Fortress is a map that has like worked well, especially in sixes for sure. Through all the metas that's been thrown at it, basically. But it's the ability to rotate to those different objective points or even spawns through different means, but generally through like a circular pattern, as opposed to something that is like Disjunction. Disjunction is like the worst map in the game for both the fact that it doesn't have very good rotational symmetry, but also on top of that, it is a beautiful map that focuses on textures, elevations, you know, just a lot of things on the map, you know, but there's like actually routing that, you know, in a way that is, you know, like you just don't have like 50
It's very
things
linear,
around you all the time.
right?
It's linear, but also it's extremely cluttered. Extremely cluttered. It takes basically what we see with Exodus Blue, and just doubles down on that just by adding all types of like peaks and all types of like rocks and things that you can like you can't really like slide past and stuff like that. It's just one obstruction over the next, and then you just have these large areas outside, you know, with nothing, you know, but some big rocks that you can just get mapped from. They're trying to do too much with one map, basically make it like an all-in-one, including a PvE map, it seems, as well. There might as well be a story on that map somewhere. So yeah, you know, like rotational symmetry is the biggest thing missing from a lot of these new maps. Multiplex is a good step forward, but the bar was pretty goddamn low with Disjunction. I'm not gonna lie. And so yeah.
Okay. Fizz.
Retribution needs to come back, by the way. Retribution needs to come back.
agree.
That's the number one map that's literally the number one map that should have come back like for the last 2 years.
Agree. What about you, Fizz?
I think Legion's Gulch is probably like one of my favorite that I think should come back. I don't know. It's just a fun map. And I think with what we have in the game now, it could be like even better.
Mm-hmm.
Just in terms of like what you can do on the map.
Agreed.
One thing about that map too is it's kind of symmetrical. So
Yeah,
it's on the bigger
Legion's
side
Gulch,
with
I'm with it,
movement abilities, right? Like the portal, the launchers help you get to and from. It solves that running issue you guys were talking about, where you just spawn, you run for 10 minutes, the whole team dies, you run back to the other side of the map. You try and just find someone. Of it, like the running simulator part, that the launchers kind of eliminate that. And I think the D1 map that Joey was talking about, where you know, there was like the huge one where you had like the Cabal vehicles to traverse, and there were launchers and things like that. Like maybe that like magic fun side of the game should be implemented in more of the larger maps. I know people are, you know, a fan of Endless Veil and like that very symmetrical, like Physics was saying, like the super symmetrical map design that allows you to take multiple routes to a different point and you know, kind of opens up more play variety and things of that nature. But also I feel like, yeah, there are those players who like to hold lanes, who like to use scout rifles and snipers and things like that, versus just it always being SMG shotgun. So I think it is healthy to have the big maps, but they need to do it in a way where the spawns aren't just like, oh, you're running forever, and maybe they need to implement more of those movement mechanics like in the maps themselves, like you guys said.
Yeah, and it speaks also to just this whole like development philosophy that they've had for a bit as well. Like every map, and they've spoken to it as well, spoken about it.
Yep.
Every map doesn't need to do everything.
Yep.
You know, and it's the same thing with certain like modes and stuff like that. It's okay to have, you know, maps that are particularly catered to, you know, one style of play, you know, and vice versa. Endless Veil is unequivocally an SMG like Titan map, you know, and that's okay. Totally cool with that. But you know, when we're trying to make maps that do everything, it ends up serving nobody, you know, it ends up serving nothing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, yeah.
Okay. Moving on. What is one change you would make to both trials and the ranked competitive playlist? We've touched on this a bit, but if you, and I want this to be a brief answer. So like top of mind, one quick change for each playlist. And I'll give you guys a second to think on it. So whoever comes up with their thoughts first, feel free to speak up. And
I can go first. I think trials. Yeah, this is what I was talking about with the loot thing earlier. I think respecting players' time, and like you can go do a GM and get like 2 to 4 golf balls or whatever, ascended shards, and you can spend 2 hours in trials and get like nothing, you
Yep.
know. And I really think there needs to be not it needs to not be stingy with loot and trials, like especially. I think this is just me. Like I'm fine. There's a huge debate on whether or not you should get adept weapons, like unless you go to the flaw or unless you get the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And I think this is just me, but I'm fine with there being a specific trials card where if you get 7 wins on it, you get an adept. Doesn't matter how many losses, and keep the lighthouse like get some artifice armor in there because there's no artifice armor in PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Give you the ships, the sparrows, the shaders, emblems, whatever. The flawless aura. I miss the flawless aura. That was just a little thing that you go like flex with your friends that you got flawless. And yeah, I think that's pretty much just giving
Cool.
out the loot, man.
Would you say similar for ranked? Like just
Yeah, I miss what are they called? Pinnacle weapons. I liked having something to chase for
dude.
in the ranked playlist. That was always fun. And yeah, I like honestly the checkmate competitive. I think is a pretty banger idea. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, I actually polled my Twitter community on would you like to see pinnacle weapons return with the caveat that they get sunset 1 year after release? Like, because I think that's a huge reason of why sunsetting even happened in the first place was like Mountaintop Recluse, Revoker were so strong. And rightfully so, right? Like, Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten as well. Like, to me, that was the golden age of Destiny. When I was playing and having that investment, to what we alluded to earlier, was like, should you have to go into PvP and PvE to grab these like super meta weapons? That was like the ultimate reason to go and go explore different areas of the game. I wasn't even in Gambit. I haven't touched Gambit in years, but I went to go, get the machine gun and do that whole thing, and it was such a motivator to play for me. So yeah, and with that poll, 81% said that they would be in favor of those returning, even with the caveat that they were sunset.
I'd be fine with that. One more change. This might be controversial. I don't think there should be a duo playlist in trials. Like the playlist gets so split up into separate player bases that it just makes matchmaking like all the more stressful. It's like ever since the flawless pool, there's still ways to just find ways to not match each other, and taking away some of the stress of like having to go flawless, having people be able to just get an adept loot, like it'll keep people playing and you won't need all these requirements. Like keep freelance or maybe have it come by once a month or whatever, but yeah, the duo queues are making threes stressful.
I think your changes kind of complement each other as well, because I think if they were more generous with loot, there wouldn't be the need to have a duo playlist and or have like the threes only, and then that sort of division of the player base, because whether you're winning or losing, you're getting rewards just for
that's kind of with comp too, like that change. It's somebody somewhere is getting screwed over as a solo player when it's just not fair,
right,
to the solo player.
Right. Tony.
Oh man, Jay said some good stuff, man.
I agree.
Thank you.
I mean, it's got to be like, I mean, across both, and we've already spoken about this as well. The fact that we just need to be showering people with loot, especially our less experienced folks, especially people that are dabbling. you know, and specifically with those like rare materials that, you know, like newer players don't necessarily have like stocked up and that sort of thing, you know. Um, I agree with Jay as well. Duos kind of like ruin it. I've long said that I'm completely okay with it just being like a solo weekend, like once a month. Like keep it trios, you know, but then like one weekend everybody's got to play solo, or you just wait
Interesting.
until the next, you know, so that you just keep the population nice and thick. But you also provide an opportunity to get excited about that one like solo weekend or whatnot. Me personally, I wouldn't mind like 2 solo week. I don't mind playing solo. I like, you know, I'm cool with that. So like it could be twice a month, but the point is, I agree. I mean, how many changes have we made over the last couple of years, you know, to matchmaking? Now that being said, again, none of us want to be like an armchair dev. There might be something we're missing. As far as a solution that we haven't, you know, thought of that is like so straightforward as what we're suggesting. But I agree, like it's not as if like the threes playlist, I don't touch it. I don't touch it. You know, you already know what you're getting into when you queue up for threes. And it's because, and also as a solo player, you know, it's just you never know what you're gonna get as the population dips, right? Especially through the weekend. If it's, you know, even if it was thick to start, you know, you're gonna have like less and less of a good time as a solo player. And I do agree, like solo players in particular are the ones we should be thinking of. Well, at the very least, you know, as much as our threes.
Yeah.
Duos kind of killed the playlist a little bit.
I feel like duos is like the, like from outside looking in, and in my experience as well, like in my limited time coming in there, when I went to grind for Cataphract, like, you know, if you the duos seem to be the big problem point. I don't know if it's, I feel like that it's a very delicate balance of like, you know, keeping solo players involved, but also not giving that level of almost like you're kind of cheesing / manipulating the matchmaking by going duo versus just going in solo, and also avoiding threes. Because
It is.
So yeah, I feel like the solo playlist and 3v3 need to be there, but man, like yeah, that duo is definitely.
And I'm not even knocking it as like cheesing the playlist per se. And I know you didn't necessarily mean it like this either, but you know, like that's the only place personally that I even just like when I dip into trials, that's the only place that I go just to get a typical trials experience where I'm still challenged to make sure that I'm doing my best. But I'm not, you know, going in there against like the most oppressive like meta simply because you know, like threes is a diminished play, like the fire team matchmaking for threes, if you want to call it its own playlist. But the fire team matchmaking when you're matching 3 and 3 is just so, you know, it's super oppressive. So yeah. And even if we do, you know, 1 week in a month is solos, like across the board, 1 week in a month is duos across the board, and then 2 weekends of threes, and then just be thoughtful about maybe what maps it is, you know, if that ends up, you know, providing a more rewarding or less rewarding experience for folks. I just feel like there can be a lot more intention behind, you know, the week to week trials experience. But, you know, the thing that always comes back around to it is the like population basically, and just getting a diverse, because all of this stuff we've been talking about with regards to matching the same team back to back as well, all of that can just funnel right back to the core root of it, which is population and population splitting, and the fact that you know, that puts a lot of stress on like Bungie to always ensure, you know, that people are going to have fun no matter what map it is, no matter what reward it is. You always want that population to be thick enough to support these innovative things that Bungie's trying to do with the playlist, whether that be trials or competitive. So getting that engagement, ensuring that engagement, we got to give up some of this other stuff. And it's the same thing. A very simple example of that is just how they consolidate the playlists and being very thoughtful about that. And I'm so glad that they are experimenting and being thoughtful about what playlists are available at any given point in time to ensure the thickest population, but also balancing that with the diversity of activity and allowing people to have those corners of PvP that they enjoy.
Yeah. So fire team balance, you know, consolidating playlists and making sure player population, and then obviously loot incentives just at the core of everything. Potentially
Yeah,
shifting
just-
cosmetics to being more of like the, the thing you push for is the end game solo, like going flawless, like
Or catalyst,
incentive.
like
and,
say for example, competitive playlist. Say that's what your pinnacle is. Oh, we're gonna juice the shit out of Thorn. Okay, well that's gonna be top of like competitive playlist. That's gonna be the new pinnacle. It doesn't have to be like something that you're about to do anyway to get excitement about an iconic weapon. That can be the pinnacle, for like it could be the pinnacle across all three, like across Gambit as well, if they end up deciding
That's a
that they
great
want to
point.
actually put some
Yeah.
like it doesn't have just like you can get the whatever weapon you can get it from the Crucible vendor the ritual weapon, right? Because you can get it from Gambit, Crucible, or Vanguard strikes, right? Or Vanguard, whatever. Same sort of thing. If you do the peak in game thing for each of those activities or whatever activity they're developing for.
Yeah.
I'm obviously speaking to Gambit. Then yeah, you can get that. So yeah,
So
that's an option.
Fizz, the last one to answer this question. One change you would make to Trials in the ranked playlist if it hasn't been said already. If there's anything else you have to add there.
One change I would make is, one change is I would remove duo queue for trials, and then for comp, I would probably make it so weapons are like repeatable. Like you don't just play 3 games and then you get it. It's just like you play it and then it can randomly drop. Would add a lot of replayability. There's also like a million other things that was thinking about. Like I think, for example, with adept weapons, those should be the only weapons that have enhanced perks. Like crafted weapons should not be able to have enhanced perks.
We actually shared that sentiment on the PvE side as well. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I think that
Good
like
idea.
for example, in comp there should be adept weapons. Like the weapons that are farmable in comp should be adept. Like when you get it as a random drop, but you can focus it for a normal. And I think obviously like materials and all that, like you should be able to get Ascendant Alloy. I also think the Memento for trials, you should be able to get that, like have the opportunity to get it at least every card. But obviously, like it should be a repeatable drop. It shouldn't be like, okay, I got flawless once this week, I can't get the Memento anymore. I got to wait till next week.
Or what if you had the chance to choose in like the chest, like between what if you were farming and you were like, I want to choose between alloys or a memento or something, like out of the final chest, you actually had players say in like what you want to pick there.
You could do that. I feel like it's better to just kind of leave that in the hands of the house, so to speak. But I think you should at least have the option, because right now with trials, you literally can only get one memento, and then for Gambit, it's like you can get as many as you want for the most part. Like you can get one, keep playing, get another one. Like it's not on a weekly reset. Same with the Vanguard. Same with even the new Festival Lost memento that came out. Like it just, that's kind of like the problem with PvP in general, is like a lot of the loot incentive is like on a weekly basis, and I think changing that to like being a constant will help improve replayability. For it.
Agreed. I also feel like the cap on the single memento just across the board needs to change. I find that super lame. But
I agree, but at the same time, I just think it should be repeatable. Like you should be able to farm that as many times as you want a week. Like, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see any reason why it's that way for the other ones and not for trials. Like, I don't.
I totally agree. We are a bit past time, but if this is the same as what you just said with the trials and ranked thing, by all means say it. If this is different in the wider lens of Destiny, as it relates to communication from Bungie or just the game as a whole, feel free to answer. But what is the #1 priority for you and your community heading into the final shape? And this is by no means meant to say that you're speaking for your whole community, but this could be like your personal most important thing, or it could be like a common sentiment you've seen in your Twitch chat or in your YouTube comments or wherever. Let's start with Fizz.
What exactly is the question? Like exactly?
What is your #1 priority for you and your community heading into the final shape?
Number one priority? That's a very good question. For me, I think the biggest thing is like knowing what they have planned for the future, because they say that we're getting like that we're going to get the final shape, and then we have the episodes, and the episodes is going to be the time that they figure out what they want to do with the game.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of unknown there. Like they don't even know what they want to do with the game after the episodes. So like
There's
my biggest priority,
nothing said about it. Yeah.
yeah, my biggest priority is knowing what is happening in that unknown space, because like, this is my livelihood is dependent on it.
Yep.
So
I think we're all right there with you. Honestly,
that
that's been
is
brought
my
up a
biggest
lot.
priority. I'm going to play the game no matter what. I just want to know, are we still making the game? Like, is the game still happening, or like after that, and like
Yeah.
if it is, what exactly is that?
Yeah.
Nothing else. I don't really.
Great. No, that's a
My
great
philosophy is I will be getting mine. Like, I'm going to be playing the game. I'll be fine. Like, there isn't going to be anything they add to the game that I can't handle or take. And if you've been playing the game for a long time, that's probably the case for like everyone, because we've been through a lot. Like, there has been really jarring, like pretty much everything that could happen has happened for the most part.
Yep.
So I just want to know what the future holds, and that's not something that's going to be available to me or to anyone, or that's even available to them at this point. So
yeah. Joey.
Number one priority. I don't know. I typically I've had like past expansions of my advice to people is to like not get your expectations high, but this is quite literally the culmination of like 10 years of storytelling and being a part of this community.
Yeah.
So I don't really know if it's a priority, but you have the right to want the epic conclusion that we deserve. Like,
Yeah.
And I really, might be hopium, but I don't want it to just be, I don't want to just be finishing it to finish it. Like, I want it to be crazy. I want it to be, what the buildup has been this past 10 years.
And they've hyped it up to be as much with their little note that they put in place of the TWID last week, where they said we want it to be on the bar or exceed the likes of Taken King and Forsaken. So they've got some big shoes to fill. And one thing that I think is really interesting is, again, a week later, after all of that news came out, still no confirmation of the delay, which I was sure, like, I honestly thought we were going to come on here and that was going to be a major talking point. No confirmation of the delay yet. And it's hard to not speculate given that it was like internal sources providing that information, but man, the question becomes, do you feel they can add, that level of additional magic and what they see for the final shape to be at that level of those other expansions in just that additional 4 months? I'm not so sure, but Tony, what about you? What's your number one priority?
Let my devs rock.
Amen to that, dude.
You know what I'm saying? Like, let them give us what we want. Let them do their job. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I mean, this might be kind of like controversial. I don't care. I'm gonna say it anyway. A large part of letting them do their job is not firing them.
Not firing them, and also the feedback that came out where they said, community management and devs were going to their upper management begging for them to listen to community feedback.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just let them do their job. Let them guide the game. Let them give us what we want, because you said it exactly right.
Yeah, it's micromanagement at that point. You're not enabling the talented individuals you hired to actually
shine through and do the job that you hired them to do, to be innovative.
I think at the same time that issue isn't as black and white as you make it seem. Like, it might not be that they're saying no, don't do that because fuck it, they might not have the resources. Like we don't have access to that information.
Yeah, but you've been I mean, of course that I don't mean those types of situations where it's just like, oh, okay, well, I really want sunsetting, I really want sunsetting. I really want sunsetting. Well, they may not have the resources to do something like that. I really want D3. They may not have the resources to do that. No, I'm just talking about, addressing like pain points in a reasonable amount of time. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same, what I'm saying is like that they might not, like, who knows? Like we don't know what goes on there. From our perspective, from that information, where it's like the devs were asking for that like stuff, like for resources to make changes to the game. Who knows if management even has the resources to do that? Maybe that's why they're saying no. Maybe they're saying no because they're criminally incompetent. We don't know that.
Hey,
it's true. It could go
100 people aren't incompetent. Like, I love you, Fizz, you know what I'm saying? But 100 people ain't incompetent, especially, knowing that some of these people, if you follow them, you know what I'm saying, like, are some of the
He's
best
talking about
in
the
their
upper
field.
management.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm talking about the upper management? Okay.
I'm saying that we don't know that upper management is not giving them the resources because they're just like, I don't want to. They might not be able to. Like, they might literally not be able to. And we don't. It's not as black and white as like evil management and like or shitty devs. Like, it's just
there's
like,
quite. Well, I don't know. Well, I'm not saying it's black and white. I certainly don't, mean to, say it's not. That we know everything about, what's going on, the inner workings and that sort of thing. But there have been plenty of devs that have come out and spoken in detail, about the poor management, quote unquote, in particular. And the fact that management just simply did not let them do what was necessary in order to drive the financials necessary to actually keep them in their jobs. You know, so it's just poor decision making in a lot of different ways. And I think that it's just important to kind of like, and this is just to everybody. I'm not trying to speak to Sam or anything in particular. To see what's going on in the game dev industry in general. This is not something that's simply isolated to Bungie.
6,000 this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, a lot of the issues that are with Destiny is like an industry-wide thing. Like the game being casual and not really having an end game. That's like an industry-wide thing. Games are trying to make their games easier so more people can enjoy them because that's what's going to make them more money. So
I think sometimes what ends up happening, and I think, you guys have echoed like sentiments of both of these, is like upper management sometimes I feel chooses the short profitable route versus implementing sustainable systems in a game that might be loss leaders initially in terms of revenue, but are going to be much more sustainable long term for everyone in your game. And I just hope they start to trust their development team, and I hope they start to focus more on like the ultra long term versus what's gonna help finance our next mission in the immediate future. What's the thing that's gonna sell the most copies of Lightfall, but what happens after that, after the initial 2-week hype dies down. Like, I think that's,
and that also like builds into crunch as well, right? Because it's just like, I mean, if they've got to solve this solution for Lightfall, it's a short-term solution, well, it's crunch time for the next one, and the next one, the next one. There's no real breathing room from having systems in place that are meant to kind of like last, through multiple seasons, kind of just at a baseline, right? To give some reprieve to our devs. I completely agree. Yeah. And let's keep in mind too that like the next 3 exotic missions can literally be funded by one singular ornament called the Dragon Shadow ornament.
Dude, that's kind of one of those things where I'm like, we talked about it so much on the other panels, but I wish they would just be more dynamic with offering things that are clearly the big sellers in the community, instead of Heart of Inmost Light, when that was like the hottest build in PvE. It was like just at the epicenter of every build. When do we get the Hoyle ornament? Just before it gets nerfed. When do we get the Starfire Protocol ornament? After it's been nerfed. Like, dude, if you prioritize that, that's like one of those things. That's an area of the game where I'm like, dude, you're literally just missing huge profits by not expediting one specific thing in the store.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I don't care. At the end of the day, that's just, in my opinion, is just a miss. Like one ornament. I don't care if you have to dedicate someone to that for 2-3 weeks, whatever it takes. Think about the money you would make on that Starfire ornament or the Hoyle ornament, two of the best we have in the game right now, if they came out at the peak of their use.
Yeah, and give that person a bonus too, by the way. I just want to go ahead and say that, you know, like if they're gonna work 2-3, you know, like weeks straight up, like give them a bonus if it ends up doing well, you know, on top of that.
100%. I don't know. Just things like that. I'm like, man, or like player engagement, like, you know, we talked about this too, rotating playlists and limited time boosted events for double resilience artifice armor or triple drops in grasp of avarice or anything in the game that's just more dynamic, speaking to what your community wants based on usage rates, based on popularity, sentiment on Twitter. I don't care, whatever it is. More dynamic, like, evaluation of what is popular in your community and taking advantage of it to engage players. Like, it's just, instead of relying on like rotating playlists and coming out with ornaments late and things like that, it's just, man, missed opportunities. But with all of that being said, we are well over time, and I want to respect your guys' time. So first of all, thank you guys so much for joining and being part of this. I hope you felt the conversation was a good one, and chat as well. All of their links for Diffizzle, Physics, and Mr. JOverrated are all on screen now. Please go check them out, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and be a part of it. I thought it was an awesome discussion and super
thank you for having us.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any closing words before I let you guys go?
I don't know. Big love to Jay and also Sam, and of course you above as well. You know, like certainly folks that I appreciate, you know, being here in this community, which can sometimes just get rough just on the community side, just in general, which only thing I'll say is, man, we gotta be treating each other better. Like Sam started off with it just by talking about the fact that we gotta, like, there's no need to elevate ourselves or our builds or whatnot by then diminishing somebody else's. For example, we all get frustrated. We're all human. That's cool or whatnot, but we don't do enough of just like celebrating folks. And then, you know, saying if you're not gonna celebrate folks, if you're gonna say some negative shit, just don't say shit at all. You know, and like people think that their Twitter account, you know, with 2, 3, 4, 15, 100 followers ain't gonna get attention, but it does, and it ends up circulating, and it ends up creating a lot of bad energy. And you know, egos, you know, like Soda says, egos are inevitable, right? But it's just like you don't have to actually reply. You don't have to say anything, you know.
Yeah, as much as you want to.
You know,
I'm guilty of it sometimes too.
Yeah, of course, we all are, you know, but we got to be more thoughtful about that as a community, because like a really good example of that, and I'll let it go after this, is it's just like people coming at Merc, you know, people coming at Merc, and it's just like you don't realize that when you come at somebody like that, you're literally like, it's counterintuitive to your goal, you know?
Yep.
Like, how are they supposed to function, work, keep good mental health? How are they supposed to listen to you, you know, on your actual constructive thoughts? If, you know what I'm saying, all you're doing, you know, is all this just blasting just negativity at their personal character, you know, making all types of weird assumptions and stuff. It is counterintuitive.
It's tiring.
You know, it's tiring, it's exhausting for everyone involved, and it's just counterintuitive to getting the changes that you actually want, those constructive changes that you know, like meaningful stuff that you are absolutely correct on, that you're absolutely correct on being frustrated. How? You know, if it's just this, you know what I'm saying? And just attacking people, like, just
coming with a problem and a solution instead of just attacking, and I totally get that. There's just, it almost feels like to be a creator nowadays. I mean, I give you guys props, and there's definitely days where it takes an emotional like toll on me. You try and do right by your community. You try and express your opinion the best way you know how, and it's just like sometimes you just get torn down for the sake of being torn down, right? And I think people jump to assumptions far too often. It's tough to see, but yeah. So I agree. Be better to each other, especially now with all this emotional roller coaster with Bungie going on.
Yeah.
It's literally, at least what this summit was about. It's Destiny 2 PvP. You can't have an ego in this game. There's too many broken things. Like if in honor of the D2 pan or the state of PvP, so like my advice to people is like take the game seriously, but don't take it seriously. You know, like PvP is supposed to be fun. Like don't let it consume. Don't you know, trash people for using certain thing. It kind of echoing what Fizz was talking about earlier. Literally, a little thing that I'll do is if I die, just literally say good job, like nice shot, like instead of resorting to like that stupid God is so chat, like nah, be like literally it's like good job, like, and then just move on. And like, you know, it really can change your mindset and like just not. Oh, I see so many people take or get so frustrated at D2 PvP and just it's not that deep, man. Like take a break if you need to, like play their stuff or just you know enjoy it.
My good friend Process in chat, who's a Salvo Shatter Dive enjoyer, is just he's smiling, and I love it.
As Fizz would say, I do not like that playstyle very much.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. So I think people are humans in general. This is going to get down to like life philosophy, but humans in general we're creatures of like emotion. Like, and a lot of people let their emotions control them. And what happens is that people get so emotional playing their little video game that they don't think about what they're saying and what repercussions it might have, and they're just upset. And you know they don't think about it objectively. Like, okay, do I really hate this individual? Like, do I think this individual is an awful person that, like, you know, any plethora of like horrible things they could say? It's not really that. It's just you are frustrated by the game or by the way they're playing. You don't know that person. People just aren't objective. They're very emotional, and they take that out on other people. And you see that in all aspects of life.
They literally take just like a death in a game, you know, like, and they take it personally.
I mean, how often do you see those tweets?
They attribute that frustration. They attribute that frustration to the person. You know, just exactly what Sam again said earlier. It's just like, look, frustration is okay. That's human, but be careful not to then attribute that to the actual individual behind the monitor. You know, and then if you're going to say something constructive, or if you have something, like, talk about how maybe that might need to be better balanced by Bungie, and then just let it go. You know, that's what I try to do, is just like, hey, I'm not cool with PKs and not cool with barricades. I'm gonna talk about it for a second, what I think maybe we should, you know, address, you know, sandbox wise, Bungie wise, and I'm gonna let it go, you know?
Yeah.
You guys are awesome, man. I mean, dude, I was not expecting that type of closing sentiment, but that's real and it's needed.
Let's be better people,
now,
man.
for sure.
And I think one thing to understand too is like when people make those mistakes, like everyone makes mistakes. We're all hypocrites.
Everybody
like,
has those days.
Yeah, everyone is a hypocrite. If you think that you've lived your life and never been a hypocrite, you're just not paying attention, I don't think.
Right.
For example, bring up Merc. Like at one point he was like saying something about Stompy Hunters, and you know, now he has his standpoint now. And I have also at one point in my life you know, thought like, oh, that guy using a fusion, what a horrible human being. That's not exactly the wording I would use, but I've thought that and I've said that, expressed that sentiment, but I've grown out of that. And I think people are allowed to make mistakes and feel that way, but you know, you also have to give them room to like learn and grow.
Yeah.
Because we all make mistakes. We are all hypocrites. That's just life. That really is just life.
Yep.
Yeah, and I know we could keep on going for forever, but the last thing I'll say again is I'm really, you know, proud of the growth in a lot of our like OG creators, you know, and I'll leave with what, like, y'all saw that tweet from Gigs just talking about the, you know, the nuance between, look, we can, and multiple people have started, you know, saying this, you know, but it's really important for us larger platforms to say stuff like this. Look, you know, we can all be disappointed in Bungie, disappointed in the game, disappointed in the layoffs and the mismanagement of our devs, mistreatment of our devs. but at the same time, we can still be. It's okay to be excited about final shape. It's still be excited about the Amaru engine and stuff like that. Like, we're humans. We're not so black and white. And I just wish that folks wouldn't take things so black and white and just let us be complicated humans. Both are okay.
Yep. Amen to that. Well, guys, thank you again for joining. It was awesome to get to meet some of you. It was great to have you guys on. So I think it was a valuable discussion for sure. Chat, again, make sure you follow all their links. They're on screen now. And yeah, gentlemen, have a good rest of the day.